Chapter 30:15, What's the structure of the brain? 11. When she said this, Chao Meng felt that her entire person was not good. Her mood instantly became gloomy. When Leng Ruoxue and the other two heard this, they were speechless. However, the demon was relieved. At least this woman wouldn't cause any trouble for him and Shuai. Are you here to defend us, or are you here to ask me how to chase a man? Leng Ruoxue asked after a moment of silence. I'm here to defend you, and also to ask about chasing men. Chao Meng said honestly. Even though Leng Ruoxue felt a little helpless when she heard this, she still kindly suggested, I wonder what type of man you're interested in. Cold-blooded? Domineering? Gentle? Black-bellied? It's a big ice block. Chao Meng said with hatred. Even a beauty like you can't warm the ice? Then I really don't have any good ideas, unless the Overlord forces himself on me. Leng Ruoxue said after some thought. The Overlord forced himself on me. Will he come after me after this? Even though Leng Ruoxue's idea moved Chao Meng, she was still a little afraid. I don't know, Leng Ruoxue said irresponsibly. Chao Meng was upset by Leng Ruoxue and said with hatred, You're too irresponsible. I'm too honest. Why don't I suggest you change to another man? Leng Ruoxue suggested. The ice cube man was the most difficult to deal with. Of course, once he melted the ice, he would turn into an ice-cold loyal dog. This was something that would give one a sense of accomplishment. However, this princess in front of them didn't seem to have the courage to do so. No. I've had my eyes on him since I was young. He had guarded it for so many years, how could he let others take advantage of it? I've decided, I'll do as you say. Making up his mind, Chao Meng said with a look of going all out. I wish you good luck. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Thank you. Now that I'm done with my business, let's talk about yours. Chao Meng's train of thought jumped around and very quickly, she brought the topic back to Leng Ruoxue. The matter of the Hei family? Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked in an innocent manner. And, regarding the Hei family's false accusation, what do you have to say? How do you want me to defend you? Chao Meng asked seriously, her previous joy gone. Leng Ruoxue looked deeply at Chao Meng for a long time before she replied honestly, It's not a false accusation, because I did it. She realized that Chao Meng and Chao Yu were indeed siblings. The way they spoke, did things, and their styles were really similar. Chao Meng didn't expect to hear this answer and was stunned for a long time. Leng Ruoxue and the other two sat quietly on the chairs, not disturbing her thoughts. After a long time, Chao Meng finally came back to her senses. She looked at Leng Ruoxue with a nervous expression and said, You really did it? How did you do it? He did it just like that. Leng Ruoxue's answer was very simple, but Chao Meng was going crazy. What kind of answer was that? He was too irresponsible. That's not something that ordinary people can do. Chao Meng gritted her teeth and reminded him. I didn't say I was an ordinary person. Leng Ruoxue agreed. Thanks, that's not something an ability user can do. Chao Meng said. Chao Meng, on the other hand, was going crazy. She deeply felt that communicating with the woman in front of her was very tiring. Woo-woo, Mama. Could she go home? Taking a few deep breaths, Chao Meng collected her depressed mood and said, Can I take it as you are not ability users? Sure. Leng Ruoxue nodded. Then, can you tell me who you are? As far as I know, the Alliance has not found out your identities. You are not even from an elementary civilization. At this point, Chao Meng did not intend to hide anything. If I say that we are gods, would you believe me? Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. Of course I don't. We're in the age of technology, where do gods even exist? Chao Meng said immediately. She was an atheist and did not believe in gods or demons. There are gods in this world. Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Then what evidence do you have to prove that you are a god? Chao Meng asked, still in disbelief. Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly, then grabbed Chao Meng's arm. The two of them disappeared from the room. When Chao Meng realized that she had been brought to the vast universe in the blink of an eye and was still floating in the blue sky, she couldn't stand the stimulation. She couldn't help but let out a scream and her face turned pale. She held on to Leng Ruoxue tightly, afraid that she would fall. This was too surreal. She was actually standing in space without any protective measures. No one would believe it. Go back. I believe you. After a long time, Chao Meng finally stabilized a little and said pitifully. Sob. She seemed to know too much. She didn't know if she would be killed. PNDNO1. Chao Meng, who was still in shock, was like a little beast that had been struck by lightning. She sat on the chair listlessly. After a long time, she carefully asked, May I know, what did the Hei family do to offend you? The head of the Hei family wants to give his daughter to my man. Leng Ruoxue said casually, then added, since they dare to bully me, then I can only make the Hei family lose everything. Upon hearing this, Chao Meng's heart settled down and thought, that was close. It was a good thing that she was not interested in that devilish man. Otherwise, she would bring disaster to the Mu Yuan royal family. Wait, what about her brother? It seemed that he had to go back and persuade his brother not to have any ideas about this woman. He couldn't afford to offend these three people. After thinking about it, Chao Meng felt a sense of relief. But she still couldn't help but ask curiously, you told me about your identity and the Hei family, aren't you afraid you'll tell others? I'm not afraid. Aren't you our lawyer? Of course, you have to be honest with a lawyer. Leng Ruoxue blinked and smiled. In reality, to these ordinary people, if her identity could really scare them, it would not be a good thing to not pay for it. It would save them a lot of trouble. Therefore, Leng Ruoxue did not mind Chao Meng revealing her identity. Chao Meng nodded with a bitter smile and couldn't help but sigh, when I was a child, I heard my elders say that God loves the world. Today, I finally know that this is true. Leng Ruoxue was confused. God loves the world. Was that something a god could say? It should be the huckster who said it, right? Seeing Leng Ruoxue's confusion, Chao Meng took the initiative to explain, even though the Hei family has offended you, you didn't kill anyone from the Hei family. You only gave them some punishment. Isn't this a display of God's love for the world? Child, you're thinking too much. Those were the words that the huckster used to deceive the innocent people. Chapter 30:16, What's the structure of the brain? 12. Initially, Leng Ruoxue did not want to explain, but in order not to be misunderstood, she still said, You're wrong, in the eyes of God, everything in the world is like an ant. If you offend the dignity of God, you will have to pay with your life. But for me, it's too easy to turn some people into ashes and I don't want to let the Hei family benefit, so it's better to let them have nothing. After hearing this, Chao Meng was speechless. She could no longer say anything like, God loves the world. It turned out that gods were terrifying and vengeful. And the revenge would be extremely ruthless. Today, she finally experienced it. You don't need to do anything. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. Ah. When Chao Meng heard this, she had a bad feeling. Someone was going to be in trouble. You can just be our lawyer in name. At this time, the demon spoke. The demon's words made Chao Meng sad. She was one of the best lawyers in the alliance. Why did she become a wallflower in front of these three? However, the other party was a god, and it seemed that she really didn't need to do anything. Leng Ruoxue nodded in agreement. Chao Meng had no choice but to compromise under the pressure of these two. Before he was about to leave, Leng Ruoxue reminded him, Princess Chao Meng, I suggest that you take this opportunity to pursue the man that you like. I will. After saying that, Chao Meng turned around stiffly and left. However, she didn't leave immediately. Instead, she went to bail the three of them out, but their bail was rejected by the alliance. After being rejected, Chao Meng didn't argue with the people of the alliance. Instead, she looked at the person in charge who rejected her with a little sympathy and then patted her sleeves, not taking away any color. The person in charge was surprised for a long time when he saw that Chao Meng was so easy to talk to, but he did not think too much about it. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue and the other two were temporarily locked up in the detention room. Looking at the sealed white room, Ji Kai couldn't help but sigh. Master, Madam, I've always been a law-abiding citizen. Today is the first time I'm being detained. You mean, we're not law-abiding citizens? Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue raised her eyebrows. No. It wasn't he. I didn't mean it that way. Ji Kai saw that his wife's tone was a bit unfriendly, so he quickly changed his words. But you're right. We've never been law-abiding citizens, because the laws in our world are all set by us. Leng Ruoxue suddenly changed the topic. Such a sudden turn of events stunned Ji Kai for a while. After he regained his senses, he looked at Leng Ruoxue with his bright eyes and shouted in his heart, "My idol! Madam is so domineering." However, what Ji Kai admired more was the calm bearing of his master and his wife. No matter where and when, the two of them seemed to be strolling in their own backyard. It really made him envious, jealous, and hateful. When he could be like this, he would feel that he was complete. He stayed in the detention room for 3 days, but the Alliance Parliament didn't send anyone over. Ji Kai couldn't help but feel puzzled. In fact, the Alliance Parliament had been biding their time because they had been discussing countermeasures. According to the news from the Muyuan royal family, 2 of the 3 were gods, so they couldn't be touched. Of course, this news was disclosed to the Muyuan royal family by Chao Meng, and the Muyuan royal family informed the Alliance Council out of consideration for their interests. The appearance of this news caused the alliance to be divided into 2 factions. One faction was naturally led by the Muyuan royal family. They supported the idea of befriending Leng Ruoxue and the other 2. The other faction was led by Vice President Good-for-Nothing's Fan family. They hoped to control Leng Ruoxue and the other 2 in their hands. Thanks, the 3 of them calmly stayed in the detention room during the day and returned to the bracelet to rest at night. The Vindice who was in charge of monitoring their every move seemed to be used to them disappearing from time to time. However, such news to the people of the Alliance Parliament was mixed with joy and sorrow. The worried side was naturally the Muyuan royal family. They really did not know when this matter would end. They deeply felt that the longer this matter dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for the alliance. What if the god of killing got angry? The consequences were simply unimaginable. However, Good-for-Nothing and the others were rather excited. Originally, Good-for-Nothing only felt that Leng Ruoxue and the other 2 were extraordinary. Now that it was proven that they were indeed extraordinary, he naturally did not want to let the 3 of them off easily. What he desired the most was to take them for himself. Good-for-Nothing, who had already gone a little crazy, had made up his mind to keep Leng Ruoxue and the other 2 in the Alliance Conference forever. Of course, they would be kept as their prisoners and test subjects. He coveted the others' magical treasure, and he wanted to get their genes that were beyond human. He deeply believed that as long as he could get the genes of the man and woman, the Fan family would become the most powerful family in the entire alliance. Thinking of this, Good-for-Nothing could not control his thoughts at all. However, the Muyuan royal family had an extraordinary status in the alliance. With their strong opposition, at least half of the alliance's parliament members chose not to support him, which made him feel deeply aggrieved. However, Good-for-Nothing insisted on doing this, so he sent people to secretly persuade those families who did not support him on the surface, and the results were very good. There were quite a few families that were convinced by him and had their eyes on Leng Ruoxue and the high-quality genes of the evildoer. After all, the temptation of genes that could improve the fundamental quality of the family was too great. Furthermore, Leng Ruoxue and the evildoer had always been very obedient. This had caused some of the greedy families to look down on them. From their point of view, even though the Hei family had accused the couple of being responsible for the destruction of their property, they did not have any concrete evidence. As such, it was impossible to prove how terrifying the strength of the couple was. Moreover, who didn't know what was going on behind the scenes? As a result, Hei tribe's end was not a good example for them. Some families were on the bright road to death, never to return. Although the royal family of Muyuan was furious about the betrayal of a considerable number of their allies, they could do nothing about it. The only thing they could do was to draw a clear line with the other party. After all, the temptation of those three people was too great for the major families. At one point, some people in the Muyuan royal family were tempted. However, under the iron-blooded suppression of the Emperor Muyuan, the restless royal family members either retracted their thoughts or were expelled from the royal family and were no longer a part of the Muyuan royal family. In short, this time, the strong Emperor Muyuan would not be soft on anyone, even if the other party was his own son. In reality, the reason why Emperor Muyuan was so determined to be on good terms with Leng Ruoxue and the other two was because after he dealt with a few members of the royal family for the first time, Leng Ruoxue and the demon had visited his palace. At that time, they had given Emperor Muyuan a huge scare. Such a god who could appear in front of them without alerting anyone was not something that ordinary people like them could covet. With that experience of shock, Emperor Muyuan's mind was even more determined. A god was a god. It was not something that ordinary people could get their hands on. More importantly, Leng Ruoxue had also given Emperor Muyuan an elixir that could remove the poison in Chao Ye's body. Chao Yu was his most beloved son. Because he was envied by others when he was young, he was poisoned by an unknown poison. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become so short and ugly. Now that he had an elixir that could cure his son's poison, what else could he ask for? Emperor Muyuan was satisfied and deeply felt that his policy of befriending others was the right one. Now, he had gained real benefits. He was happy, but after he followed Leng Ruoxue back to the detention cell, the demon was not feeling well. Needless to say, the demon drank another big jar of vinegar. He felt that Shuai was too concerned about Chao Yu. After Leng Ruoxue found out, she only felt so wronged. When did she pay attention to Chao Yu? At least, the first time she saw Chao Yu, although she was surprised that there was such a good-looking person like Chao Yu in this high-tech civilization star field, she didn't think that Chao Yu was poison at all. The second time she saw him, she noticed that Chao Yu was as fat as a ball, so she observed him out of curiosity. This was not attention, she was just giving the Muyuan royal family some benefits. After all, they had always been supporting them. Another 10 days passed. The good-for-nothing deputy speaker and his men finally arrived in the detention room. Seeing Leng Ruoxue and the other two being so carefree, good-for-nothing could not help but feel a little angry. Even though he knew that the three of them were living a carefree life, the impact of seeing it with his own eyes was even greater. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue and the other two were having breakfast. Looking at the dazzling variety of breakfast on the table, some of good-for-nothing and the others could not help but swallow their saliva. However, Leng Ruoxue had no intention of treating them to breakfast. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Leng Ruoxue and the other two calmly finished their breakfast before smiling at Good-for-Nothing. Vice Speaker Good-for-Nothing, is there anything I can help you with? Chapter 30:17, The enemy was too cunning. 1. Of course there's something. Fan Tong raised his head and said arrogantly. After Leng Ruoxue heard this, she blinked her eyes and waited for Fan Tong to continue. Fan Tong also deliberately paused and waved his hand. Several doctors in white robes walked in from behind. After the doctors entered, they swiftly took out all sorts of tools and stood in front of Leng Ruoxue and the other two, waiting for the next order. Deputy Speaker Fan Tong, what are you doing? None of us are sick. Leng Ruoxue asked, playing dumb. Of course I know that none of you are sick. There are not so many doctors here just to treat you. Fan Tong answered truthfully. Then, he took a deep breath and said, the Parliament hopes that you can cooperate with the examination. The examination is of great significance to all of mankind, so it is of great importance. You mean, the examination on us concerns the entire human race? Leng Ruoxue pretended to be deep in thought as she asked. Then, without giving Fan Tong a chance to reply, she continued to ask, but what does this have to do with us? How is it none of your business? Are you not humans? Shouldn't they be contributing to the development of mankind? Fan Tong had placed a huge responsibility on Leng Ruoxue's group of 3, which was related to the development of the entire human race. He had an expression that did not allow for rejection. Leng Ruoxue and the other 2 could also tell that if they accepted some kind of groundless inspection, then they might be able to contribute to the development of mankind. If they rejected it, they might be treated as sinners of mankind. Preposterous. Did he think they were easy to bully or deceive? He wanted to stand on the moral high ground and threaten them. Not to mention Leng Ruoxue and the evildoer, even Ji Kai, who had heard this, felt disgusted by the shamelessness of Fan Tong and the others. He had long heard of the dirty ways of the Alliance Council, and he finally saw it for himself today. If they were to flatter ordinary people, they might really fall for it in order to be heroes. But who was the person in front of them now? Ji Kai gave them 32 thumbs up sympathetically and mourned for them for 3 minutes. This was what it meant to not die if they didn't seek death, right? At this moment, Ji Kai had already decided to move a small stool and take out his snacks to watch the show. In any case, there was a master and his wife, so he just had to be an audience. Although it was a little unprofessional for a servant to not be of any help, he could not be blamed. Who asked master and madam to be too strong? Once they provoked an enemy, he would be left in the dust. As a servant, he was actually under a lot of pressure. After a long time, Leng Ruoxue and the demon did not have much of a reaction after hearing what Fan Tong had to say. Seeing this, Fan Tong was a little anxious and asked, "I'm talking to you. Don't be a mute." Smiling, Leng Ruoxue said with a good temper, "Deputy Speaker Fan Tong, how do you want us to answer you? Of course you'll happily accept our inspection." Fan Tong said matter-of-factly. "All right. But that's what you think. I can only say that you're dreaming." Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Do you know who you are talking to?" Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Fan Tong was enraged. "Do you know who you're talking to?" Leng Ruoxue smiled. Fan Tong was at a loss for words. Although he knew that the other party was a god, he would not admit the identity of the 2 people in front of him. Otherwise, how could he continue with his purpose? "Thanks, what, you don't want to acknowledge our identities?" Leng Ruoxue sneered. "The crime is smuggling?" Leng Ruoxue asked calmly. "And we have to cooperate with your inspection for the sake of the development of all mankind?" Leng Ruoxue asked again. "That's right. So in order to avoid physical pain, you'd better be tactful and take the initiative to cooperate. Otherwise, you'll bear the consequences." Fan Tong shouted at the top of his voice. "Have you ever thought about the consequences of treating us like this?" Leng Ruoxue continued to ask. "This is the territory of the Alliance. Are you guys thinking of rebelling?" Hearing this, Fan Tong's heart trembled, but he quickly calmed down. This was because he believed that if the other party was really a god, he would definitely not start a massacre on all of humanity. After all, why would a true god care about mortals? God loves the world. Unfortunately, even though his idea was wonderful, he had forgotten that if he violated the dignity of the gods, would the gods be angry? As for Leng Ruoxue and the evildoer, they were not gods that were easy to get along with. It was fine if they didn't provoke them, but once they were provoked, the unlucky ones would definitely be others. After hearing Fan Tong's words, Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly and said, "We don't need to rebel, because in our eyes, you're just a group of ants." Who are you calling an ant? Hearing this, Fan Tong was furious. He had always thought highly of himself and never thought that he would be treated as an ant one day. In his eyes, ants had always been others. How could it be him? Leng Ruoxue's words were like a lit explosive, instantly setting Fan Tong on fire. Seeing that Fan Tong was glaring at her with wide eyes, Len Ruoxue became even calmer and smiled without saying a word. Seeing her like this, Fan Tong was angry and resentful. Without thinking, he ordered the doctors, capture them and inspect them. There's no need to be polite to them. Weren't you being polite to us before? When Len Ruoxue heard this, she could not help but ask with widened eyes. Of course. I was very polite to you before, but you refused to cooperate. So, I can only use force. Fan Tong's face was full of regret. Being strong isn't that easy to use. Are you sure you want to use it? Len Ruoxue confirmed. I don't want to either. It's a pity that you won't cooperate. Fan Tong said with a little regret. If that's the case, it seems like we can't come to an agreement. Len Ruoxue said with a tinge of regret. You can't say that. In fact, our attitude is completely dependent on your cooperation. So, as long as you're willing to cooperate, we can still come to an agreement. Seeing that there was a way, Fan Tong said again. I wonder how you guys want to check. Len Ruoxue asked curiously. Hearing her words, Fan Tong thought that Len Ruoxue had given in. His face instantly bloomed into a chrysanthemum as he hurriedly said, Actually, I only need you to offer a little bit of your blood. You guys want to get my master and madam's genes? Hearing this, Ji Kai's face paled. Genes? What's it for? As the mistress of the dark world, the demon had never come into contact with such profound things, so he had no idea what the function of the genes Ji Kai mentioned was. Chapter 30:18, The enemy was too cunning. 2. Genes are the data that makes up the human body. It can be obtained through research such as blood and hair. After obtaining the genes, you can use them for other purposes. Ji Kai quickly explained. What can I do? The demon narrowed his eyes and asked again. Yes, Ji Kai didn't dare to say it, because he knew that if he said the worst result, his master would definitely be angry. If we combine our genes with some people, we should be able to create an excellent descendant. Len Ruoxue laughed evilly. Descendant? Is it ours? The demon shamelessly asked. If it was ours, would they need to go through so much trouble? Len Ruoxue said calmly. Then who is it with? The evildoer's anger gradually rose. He had a bad feeling, so when he said this, his torch-like eyes were already fixed on Fan Tong. Being stared at by the demon's ink-black eyes, Fan Tong's legs immediately went soft, but he still pretended to be calm and said, Of course it's with the most outstanding member of the opposite sex in the entire star field. Only then can we create more outstanding humans. The most outstanding member of the opposite sex? It's not Shuer. The evildoer understood the other party's words, and the anger in his heart completely erupted. Was he trying to steal his and Shuer's genes to pair with someone else? This was preposterous. I don't deny that the two of you are excellent, but for the development of the entire star field, just the two of you are not enough. Therefore, your genes are very important to us. I hope you can take the big picture into consideration and assist us in our research. This is no loss for you at all, right? Seeing that the demon seemed to be wavering, Fan Tong began to brainwash him again. It's your big head. The evildoer was completely enraged. He directly kicked Fan Tong in the stomach and kicked him out of the detention room. Fan Tong, who was kicked away, still shouted, Warning! Activate the alarm. This man is too dangerous. Fan Tong's voice came closer and further away, then slowly disappeared. After that, the demon's gaze turned to the other people present and he smiled faintly. You guys also want our genes? As he spoke, the evildoer approached the people step by step. The strong sense of oppression made the other members of the Alliance Parliament break out in cold sweat. Their faces were pale as they retreated bit by bit as the evildoer closed in. In the end, no one knew who took the lead, but the people from the Alliance Council began to rush out of the detention room. Watching the back of the people from the Alliance Council, Len Ruoxue looked at Ji Kai in disappointment and said, This is the alliance that you've been talking about? With such little guts, you still dare to covet our genes? Ugh. Ji Kai didn't know what to say. This was none of his business. He wasn't a member of the Alliance Council, so why did the madam sound like she was disappointed in him? Ji Kai truly felt that he had been wronged, but he didn't dare to talk back to his wife, so he could only flatter his master. Master is too powerful. So, under Master's overbearing aura, the people of the Alliance Council slipped away. Master, madam, what are we doing now? Then, Ji Kai asked. I'm going to destroy the Alliance. The demon said coldly. Master, I support you. Ji Kai's lackey said, but as soon as he finished speaking, he heard an ear-piercing alarm from outside the detention room. It was the highest level alarm. Immediately, Ji Kai's expression changed, and he said with a trembling voice, Master, madam, we're in trouble. The Alliance has sounded the highest level alarm. We're going to be surrounded by the entire star field. Thanks, not only that, there will also be many energy laser cannons and other high-tech weapons that are not allowed to be used easily. Master, madam, what should we do? We're in danger. Ji Kai said nervously. What are you afraid of? Leng Ruoxue gave Ji Kai a disdainful look and said with disdain. Madam, the energy laser cannon is very powerful. Basically, a high-performance laser cannon can destroy a planet. Ji Kai knew that Leng Ruoxue didn't know the power of high-tech weapons, so he quickly explained. However, Leng Ruoxue still did not care. She gave the demon a look and the two of them walked out together. Seeing this, Ji Kai could only follow behind them like a little wife. As soon as the three of them came out of the detention room, they saw that they were surrounded by countless people. Facing them, in addition to the dense and fully armed Alliance guards, there were also hundreds of high-performance laser cannons in silver lines. Leng Ruoxue surveyed the scene before her beautiful eyes landed on a middle-aged man with a bandage around his head. Deputy Speaker Fan Tong, what is this for? That man was Fan Tong. Leng Ruoxue almost laughed out loud when she saw his expression. Did it have to be bandaged so exaggeratedly? You dangerous people. You actually dare to attack me. Fan Tong said with a face full of resentment. My husband only kicked you once, and you call that assault. If you're so easily ambushed, then aren't you too useless as a deputy speaker? Leng Ruoxue scoffed when she heard Fan Tong's words. This should be considered as the villain complaining first, right? Logically speaking, they should be the ones who were angry, but before they could do anything, Fan Tong and the others had already charged them with crimes. They really thought they were easy to bully. Leng Ruoxue started to reflect on herself. All this while, had they been too gentle towards these people? It's not that I'm useless, but the enemy is too cunning. Fan Tong quibbled. All right. What do you want now? Are you going to use these laser cannons against us? Leng Ruoxue asked helplessly. As long as you obediently surrender, I can let you go. After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Fan Tong put on a magnanimous expression. Do you need us to help you collect genes? Leng Ruoxue asked. It's your honor to make sacrifices for the people of the entire star field. Fan Tong said matter-of-factly. Do we need to sacrifice ourselves this time? Leng Ruoxue pretended to be shocked. Wasn't he just cooperating with her for the examination just now? They were only kicked by a demon, and they had to sacrifice themselves. Wasn't this kick a little too expensive? Was Fan Tong worth that much? You're too dangerous. It's better to sacrifice yourselves for the star field. This is also for the stability of the entire star field. Fan Tong boasted shamelessly. What if we refuse to sacrifice ourselves? Leng Ruoxue asked in confusion. Then die now. Fan Tong said as he endured the pain in his heart. Although he said that, he was taking a gamble. He was betting that the other party did not want to die so early. After all, even a god could not hope to win against their high-energy laser cannons. Chapter 30:19, The enemy was too cunning. 3. In his view, gods should only be a little higher than ability users. In general, they should have some similarities with ability users, and that was that their abilities were easily consumed. Thus, the advantage of their energy laser cannons was naturally reflected. We don't want to die either, Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Then let's sacrifice for the entire star field, Fan Tong said again. Deputy Speaker Fan Tong, may I ask, what is the difference between the sacrifice and death you mentioned? Leng Ruoxue suddenly asked. After being entangled with the other party for a long time, she finally reacted. Wasn't death and sacrifice the same? The final result was death, right? Then why was she still wasting time with the other party? The difference is huge. Although they both die, the treatment after death is completely different. Sacrificing for the sake of the entire star field, you're our heroes, but if you die, you'll die without an intact corpse. So, if you're smart, you should know what to do, right? Fan Tong said proudly. Of course, but according to my understanding, the sacrifice you mentioned should cause us to suffer, and death will only be an instant. However, I'm curious, are you really willing to kill us with a laser cannon? Leng Ruoxue's curiosity grew as she spoke. I don't want to, but you're too dangerous. If you're not willing to contribute to the development of the entire star field, I can only bear the pain and part with you, Fan Tong said with a look of reluctance. In fact, he felt that he would rather destroy something that he could not get than let others get it. Otherwise, he would be depressed to death. But now, the two people in front of him were obviously unwilling to cooperate and even used violence on him, causing him to embarrass himself in front of his subordinates. This was something he could not tolerate. Of course, if the other party was still willing to provide him with the genes, he would be willing to let them off for the time being. However, it was only temporary. From the moment they embarrassed him, the fate of these two people was already determined. Now, it was time to see if they died a worthy death. What a good way to bear the pain and part with your love. It seems like we still can't come to an agreement. Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly. With a thought, she had already put Ji Kai into her bracelet. When he saw Ji Kai disappear, Fan Tong's eyes flickered and he said, "You can only blame yourselves for not cooperating. Do you think anyone would be willing to cooperate? Deputy Speaker Fan Tong, have you brainwashed someone? Or do you think we're fools? If I ask you to cooperate like this, would you be willing?" Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. Of course I'm willing, this is such an honorable thing, Fan Tong said with a thick face. As expected of the Alliance's vice-chairman. In that case, you should cooperate with me. As soon as Leng Ruoxue finished speaking, Fan Tong was already in her hands. No one present had seen how she had done it. As soon as he was caught, Fan Tong was a little scared. What are you doing? Fan Tong's little face turned pale and he stuttered. He only felt a light breeze and he was captured. What kind of speed was this? I want to use you as an experiment. Don't worry, after you die, you'll definitely become a great hero of the entire star field, Leng Ruoxue promised. Then, she shifted her gaze to a commander of the Alliance Guards and smiled. Fire at Deputy Speaker Fan Tong. Let me test the power of your laser cannon. How many heads would it take to fire at the vice-chairman without fear of retaliation? Thanks. Leng Ruoxue was very disappointed. The other party was so timid, could they still continue playing happily? One had to know that she had been acting with the other party for so long and was just waiting to reel in the net. But now, the other party was afraid. What was she to do? Sensing Shuai'er's frustration, the evildoer snatched Deputy Speaker Fan Tong from her hands and broke one of his arms without saying a word. Instantly, a pig-like scream filled the air, shocking everyone present. The faces of the Alliance Parliament members who witnessed this scene instantly turned pale, and cold sweat trickled down their faces. The moment Leng Ruoxue saw this, she couldn't help but glance at the demon with some hidden bitterness. This fellow had stolen her limelight. The furious Leng Ruoxue was not willing to be outdone by others. She mimicked the evildoer and broke Fan Tong's other arm. Immediately, another shrill scream was heard. The others' faces turned even paler, and their hearts began to tremble. Were this couple really gods? How could he be so brutal? The Alliance Parliament was shocked. At that moment, Deputy Speaker Fan Tong had already fainted from the pain. Seeing that Fan Tong was so useless, the demon was too lazy to lift him up with his hands. He threw Fan Tong on the ground and stepped on him with his feet. Then, his dark eyes turned to the others and ordered, "Come on. Don't you want to destroy us? Hurry up and do it." He wasn't as patient as Shui to play with these ants. He had had enough. Now, he just wanted to end this quickly and teach these people a painful lesson before leaving with Shui. However, those people did not dare to act rashly after hearing his fierce tone. Moreover, their deputy speaker was still in the hands of these two people. If they really fought and injured Deputy Speaker Fan, the Fan family would definitely not let this matter rest. The evildoer could see their hesitation and released Deputy Speaker Fan Tong out of kindness. Fan Tong was kicked away by him again and fell into the lake not far from the Alliance building. In the lake, there was a star beast that had been hungry for a long time. Suddenly, food fell into its mouth. It would be a waste not to eat it. Thus, the unconscious Deputy Speaker Fan Tong unknowingly became the star beast's meal. The commander of the Alliance Guards did not expect Vice Chairman Fan to become the food of the astral beast. Seeing that Vice Chairman Fan was no longer a hostage, he asked for instructions from the Alliance Council and launched an attack on Leng Ruoxue and the demon. The Alliance Council could also tell that these two would never listen to their arrangements and surrender without putting up a fight. As such, they, who were in the same boat as Fan Tong, naturally did not wish for Leng Ruoxue and the demon to fall into the hands of others. Hence, the only outcome for these two was death. In an instant, hundreds of laser cannons were aimed at Leng Ruoxue and the demon. Ji Kai, who saw this scene from the bracelet, was extremely anxious. At this moment, he hated himself for being too weak to help his master and madam. However, Leng Ruoxue didn't have the time to comfort Ji Kai. She was counting the countless red light spots on her body. Seeing that Shui was having fun, the demon didn't disturb her and just stared at the hundreds of laser cannons in front of him. He did not have much research on this thing and did not know how powerful it was. However, if these people in front of him wanted to use these high-tech weapons to destroy him and Shui, they were simply delusional. However, he also wanted to test the power of these laser cannons, so neither he nor Shui wanted to dodge. At this moment, the hundreds of laser cannons that were ready launched a fierce attack. Chapter 30-20, the enemy was too cunning, for hundreds of energy balls that emitted white light were shot out from the laser cannon's caliber, instantly surrounding Leng Ruoxue and the demon. The two of them were bathed in the energy balls and did not feel any pain at all. In fact, Leng Ruoxue was even absorbing the energy on her own. As the ball of energy exploded in front of the Alliance Parliament members, they were relieved and thought that the other party was dead for sure. Who knew that not long after, the huge explosion of the laser energy disappeared without a trace. Leng Ruoxue and the demon were still standing in front of them, unscathed. Seeing the two of them without a single strand of hair missing, the Alliance Parliament members felt an unprecedented panic. These aren't human. No one could remain unscathed under the attack of the energy laser cannon. This was truly a god. If there were still people who doubted Leng Ruoxue and the demon god's identity before, no one dared to doubt them anymore at this moment. Seeing that the two of them were fine, the people from the Alliance Parliament subconsciously retreated. Leng Ruoxue and the demon naturally could not pretend that they did not see the small actions of the crowd. "What, are you scared?" Leng Ruoxue asked despite knowing the answer. He was afraid. Of course I'm afraid. Even the most powerful energy laser cannon couldn't do anything to these two, so these ordinary people naturally couldn't. And now, what they were most afraid of was the revenge of these two people. No, it should be said that it was punishment. Everyone's hearts were in a mess. As they thought about it, they kept a close eye on Leng Ruoxue and the demon. They were afraid that the two of them would attack everyone in a fit of anger. With the other party's ability, none of them would be able to survive. Seeing that they were a little nervous, Len Ruoshua comforted them kindly, "Don't be afraid, I won't kill you." She wouldn't kill easily during her honeymoon. Otherwise, these people wouldn't have been able to reach this point. But it would have been better if she didn't say that. Instead, she made the other party even more afraid. Not killing them might mean that they would receive an even more terrible punishment. At this moment, the evildoer took a step forward and gave the people from the Alliance Council a big shock. He only took a laser cannon and started studying it. After a while, the evildoer raised his head and said to Len Ruoshua, "Schwer, I want to try out the power of this laser cannon." "Try it. There are a lot of people there." Len Ruoshua laughed evilly as she pointed at the people from the Alliance. At this moment, the only thought in the Alliance Council was that he was lying. Didn't he say that he wouldn't kill them? What was going on now? Those who were timid could already feel their legs getting wet. PNDNO1. Everyone's heart trembled, their legs went soft, and their faces turned pale. The demon smiled. This weapon belonged to the Alliance Council, so he had no pressure using it. He pressed the button of the energy laser cannon and a ball of energy shot out from the barrel. In an instant, the Alliance people scattered like birds. The energy laser cannon chased after the people of the Alliance Parliament and then hit the building. In an instant, the Alliance Conference building collapsed into ruins, hitting hundreds of unlucky people who were closest to the building. After the incident, evildoer looked innocently at the Alliance Parliament members who were still in shock and said, "It's none of my business. I hit the Alliance Parliament building. Also, this laser cannon is yours." Shameless bastard. Thanks, they were scared out of their wits. It was only one laser cannon just now. If there were a few more, the planet where the Parliament was located would probably be destroyed. At this moment, they heard the demon say, "I'll give you 1 minute to leave this place. After 1 minute, I'll blow up everything here." Damn it. Really, what you're afraid of comes. Although the people from the Alliance Council thought so, they still quickly boarded their own spaceships and started their spaceships to leave. Not long after the flying shuttle flew out, they felt the flying shuttle shake violently. Through the glass of the cabin, they saw countless piercing white lights flashing in front of their eyes. They were extremely afraid and didn't have the time to think about it. They only cared about driving the flying shuttle to escape from this place. After all the spaceships had left, Len Ruoshua and the demon hovered in mid-air and looked at the ruins on the ground. Both of them revealed satisfied smiles and said to the star beasts that were prostrating on the ground, "This place will be yours from now on." The astral beasts that were summoned were filled with disbelief. However, very quickly, they let out deafening howls and cheers. Their voices were filled with gratitude towards Len Ruoshua and the demon. In reality, Len Ruoshua and the demon had no intention of blowing up this planet. After all, other than the Parliament, there were also many astral beasts living on this planet. Those little fellows were innocent. Hence, after scaring the people from the Parliament away, the two of them left the planet where the Parliament was located to the astral beasts here. Then, the two of them left. On the spaceship, Ji Kai was moved out. As soon as he came out, Ji Kai's face was full of grievance, and tears were rolling in his eyes. Len Ruoshua found it funny and teased, "What, who bullied you?" "No one bullied me. I just feel that I'm too useless and can't help with anything," Ji Kai said sadly. "It's good that you know." Len Ruoshua nodded in agreement. Hearing this, Ji Kai only felt more depressed. He knew that it was one thing, but Madame had said it so straightforwardly. He had a different feeling in his heart. A faint sorrow covered Ji Kai's body. Ji Kai felt sad for a while and then said, "Master, Madam, are we just going to let those bastards go?" "Who said well let them go?" Len Ruoshua blinked and asked. "Ah. But, didn't Master let them go?" Ji Kai did not understand. He had seen it with his own eyes in the space. We let them go so that they won't implicate the star beasts on that planet. Now, let's go find them. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. Was she so kind that she would let go of those who had designs on them? Of course, if she said she wouldn't kill them, she definitely wouldn't. Because she was very clear that the greatest punishment for these ordinary people was to stay alive. Hearing this, Ji Kai quickly drove the spaceship to their destinations. Leng Ruoxue's target was all the families in the alliance who were involved in this matter. Whether it was the powerful Fan family or a nobody, as long as they were on her list of punishment, she would not let them off. As for their punishment, Leng Ruoxue would strip them of all their wealth and status without exception. After all, these two things were what ordinary people cared about the most. Chapter 30-21, The enemy was too cunning. 5. In an instant, the entire Alliance star system had a major change. The powerful families lost everything overnight and were now in debt. Although the ordinary people didn't know what had happened, even the dumbest person knew that these families had offended some big shot. Now that the big shot was angry, the powerful families were all back to square one without exception. As a result, the Alliance star system was surprisingly harmonious. However, Leng Ruoxue's actions had caused several advanced civilization star fields to fall into the state of an elementary civilization star field. Some of them were even worse than an elementary civilization star field. Ji Kai, who was originally from a star field with an elementary civilization, only felt his hatred being vented. It was all because those guys from the advanced civilizations had their eyes on top of their heads. Now, they were on the same level. Leng Ruoxue didn't say anything about Ji Kai's gloating. At this moment, they were guests in the Muyuan galaxy. Due to Leng Ruoxue and the demon's interference, the Muyuan royal family could be said to be the only outstanding one in the entire star field. Of course, this was also the result of the Muyuan royal family's timely surrender. The Muyuan emperor was quite glad about this, but he did not know what instructions the three of them had for him. With caution, Emperor Muyuan treated Leng Ruoxue and the other two as honored guests and tried to find out the purpose of their visit. Although he was more than happy to be able to hug the thighs of these two gods, he was also a little afraid at the same time. Such a tangled mood made him quite troubled. On the other hand, Chao Meng was very casual when interacting with Leng Ruoxue and the other two. Every time Emperor Muyuan saw her, he would break out in cold sweat and be frightened. In reality, Leng Ruoxue and the other two did come here for a small matter. After sweeping through so many families, she had a lot of useless trash in her hands that she wanted to sell. Hence, she thought of the Emperor of Muyuan, this trash can. However, every time she saw the Emperor of Muyuan being anxious and angry but not daring to ask directly, her evil interest would take effect. After staying in Muyuan Palace for a few days, she finally revealed her purpose before Leng Ruoxue and the rest decided to leave. Upon hearing that he wanted to sell something to him, Emperor Muyuan immediately agreed, and at the same time, his heart was greatly relieved. However, when he saw the trash that Leng Ruoxue had taken out, he was depressed. The items that Leng Ruoxue wanted to sell to him were all priceless treasures. However, he believed that these items would not be of any use to the other party. Furthermore, the clans that these items once belonged to were now in name only and were in huge debt. After keeping all these dirty things, Emperor Muyuan was not afraid that those families would come for revenge, because they would never have the chance. Not long after the flying ship left the Muyuan galaxy, Leng Ruoxue discovered a stowaway in a corner of the cabin. Leng Ruoxue was speechless as she looked at Chao Meng, who was smiling at her in an attempt to please her. A princess? What was he trying to do? Although she wasn't afraid that Emperor Muyuan would blame her for kidnapping the princess, she couldn't bring this unnecessary princess. After all, they probably wouldn't return to this place in the future. Don't send me back. Seeing that she had been discovered, Chao Meng did not wait for Leng Ruoxue to speak and immediately made the first move. Can you give me a reason? Leng Ruoxue explained patiently. She had a good impression of this little girl and was willing to listen to her explanation. A life is at stake. If you send me back, I won't be able to keep my life. So, please do me a favor and take me with you. Chow Meng said pitifully. You are the princess of the Muyuan galaxy. Who would dare to take your life? Hearing this, Len Ruoxia's curiosity was piqued. Thanks, when did this happen? Len Ruoxia asked nosily. Last night. Chow Meng told him the truth. You're a princess, and he dares to hunt you down? Len Ruoxia asked with a smile. I dare. Other than the emperor, he doesn't care about anyone else. Chow Meng said, feeling wronged. I see. Len Ruoxia nodded. When Chow Meng saw this, she immediately seized the opportunity and said, Take me away. All right. Not good. Princess Chow Meng, Len Ruoxia rejected, you didn't tell me the truth, right? I've already said it. Chow Meng felt even more aggrieved. Then why did that man want to kill you? Logically speaking, even if you forced yourself on him, the one who took advantage of you should be the man, right? It's possible that he's angry, but it's not to the extent that he's hunting you down, right? Len Ruoxia asked in confusion. I don't know. I only told him that I would take responsibility and ask him to marry me. He said that he would hunt me down, so I ran away in fear. Chow Meng was so depressed that she didn't know what to say. After hearing what she had to say, Len Ruoxia couldn't help but burst out laughing. No wonder. She had finally found the crux of the problem. It was fine if he took advantage of others, but he was a man. It wasn't a big loss, but she took advantage of him and wanted him to marry her. It was no wonder that the man would be angry. What are you laughing at? Seeing Len Ruoxia's smile, Chow Meng was even more depressed. You look quite smart, why are you so stupid after taking advantage of me? Len Ruoxia was speechless. What do you mean? Chow Meng didn't understand, and her IQ plummeted. It's already depressing for a man to be taken advantage of by a woman, and you still want him to marry you. It's no wonder he's angry. Len Ruoxia explained. So what? If I can marry you, why can't he? The evildoer who had been listening by the side and had no intention of interrupting grumbled when he heard Shuaer's words. In his heart, he deeply felt that it didn't matter whether a man married a woman or a woman married a man. As long as the two of them liked each other, what did it matter who married who? It's not like he'll lose a piece of meat. So, when he heard his wife's words, he wanted to refute her. It was really nothing to marry a woman. He was the best example. Hearing the demon's words, Len Ruoxia immediately shut her mouth. How could she have forgotten that she was the one who proposed to him? The evildoer was married to her. Chow Meng could not help but open her mouth wide. She did not dare to speak for a long time. Did this mean that she had heard another big secret? Would she be killed to keep it a secret? Sob. Mommy, help. At this moment, Ji Kai suddenly walked out of the captain's room. When he saw Chow Meng, he was shocked at first, then he said, Master, Madam, we've been surrounded by the starships of Muyuan Starfield. At first, he was still curious about what the starships of Muyuan Starfield were up to. But after seeing Chow Meng, he understood. Let's go out and take a look. After Len Ruoxia finished speaking, she took the lead and walked out of the cabin. As soon as she went out, she saw a young man standing on the starship. The man was in his 20s. He had a strong and stylish look. He was tall and wore a dark green commander's uniform. At this moment, the man's lips were tightly pursed, and his sharp eyes were fixed on the cabin door behind Len Ruoxia. Chapter 30:22, The enemy was too cunning. 6. I want to find someone. Afraid that the other party would misunderstand, the man spoke first. Chow Meng. Len Ruoxia understood. The man nodded. He knew that Chow Meng must be on the other party's spaceship. No problem, he said. Len Ruoxia turned around and returned to the cabin. After a while, she came back with an extremely unwilling Chow Meng. She threw Chow Meng to the man and irresponsibly pulled the demon back into the cabin. Outside the spaceship, Chao Meng struggled to call for Leng Ruoxue, but Leng Ruoxue ignored her. Soon, both sides went their separate ways. In the room of the flying ship, the demon saw Shuai sitting by the window and looking at the vast universe. He pulled her into his arms and deliberately asked with a smile, "What, are you worried about that Chao Meng?" "What's there to worry about? That man loves her," Leng Ruoxue said with certainty. "Then why do you seem to have something on your mind?" the demon said gloomily. "I was just thinking that we've been on our honeymoon for a long time. I wonder how Grandpa and the others are doing. I'm starting to miss them," Leng Ruoxue said honestly. "Why don't we go home?" After thinking for a while, the demon said. Although he had not had enough of the two of them alone, he was already very satisfied to be able to be alone with Shuai for so long. "Grandpa and the others might not be waiting for us at home." Leng Ruoxue shook her head when she heard this. "Then what should we do?" "I don't want my wife to be unhappy," the demon said sadly. "Continue our honeymoon, of course. If we're fated, we might be able to meet grandfather and the others at some place." Leng Ruoxue cupped her beautiful face and said. The demon nodded. It was not easy to come out. As long as Shuai did not mention going home, he would not take the initiative to ask to go back. Very quickly, Leng Ruoxue's and the other two's flying ship left the entire star region. Not long after they left, a little boy with a cat in his arms suddenly appeared in the vast galaxy. PNDNO1. I'm from Big Sister's house. The little boy raised his head and said in a childish voice. The person who asked the question was amused and asked again, "What about your sister?" "I don't know. My sister left me and was taken away by someone." The little child's eyes were glistening with tears, and he immediately received the sympathy of the surrounding crowd, receiving a large amount of love. "How pitiful. You're still so young, how can you not have someone to take care of you? Why don't you come home with me first?" A woman in her early 30s said sympathetically. "No need, I just want to find my sister." The little boy's will was very firm, and his face seemed to say, "I will never be taken away." Thanks. When the others saw that the little boy was so clever, they also tried to persuade him, but all of them were rejected by the little boy without exception. At this time, the snow-white cat in the little boy's arms was a little impatient and reached out its sharp claws to the crowd. Most of the onlookers were middle-aged women. When they saw the kitten show signs of losing its temper, they unconsciously took a few steps back. In the end, under the awkward atmosphere, the middle-aged women reluctantly watched the cute baby turn and leave. Seeing that most of the people around him had left, the little boy carried the snow-white kitten to a corner. Immediately after, the snow-white kitten went crazy. "You idiot, I told you to find Nyo's whereabouts, not to act as a homeless child. You're really stupid. Look at what you've been doing all this time." The little white cat, Song, roared with a face of disappointment. Forming an alliance with Qing Ju could be said to be the thing that Song regretted the most in his life. This fellow was too stupid. Did it mean that Qing Ju could not do a single thing that he had asked Qing Ju to do? Every time, it would be angered half to death, and it still couldn't find Nyo's whereabouts. It was the same now. The moment he appeared, he was surrounded by people, just like the other places. Song was really about to die from anger. As for Qing Ju, he was naturally very aggrieved after being scolded. He said with a slightly choked voice, "Why don't you do it?" "Me? If I could come, would I still need you to come?" Song roared, so angry that the fur on his body stood up. "Don't be angry, I've already tried my best." Seeing that Song was angry, Green Vessel quickly comforted him. One had to know that it was not easy to have a companion in this unfamiliar place. He didn't want to be abandoned by Azure. Seeing Green Vessel like this, Song was naturally helpless. He then continued to roar, "Don't dawdle, continue searching. I've already felt Nyo's presence here, she definitely came here. Yes, I also feel that my sister is very close to me." Qing Ju clenched his small fist and said with great effort. After that, the two little fellows continued on their way. This time, Qingju was no longer acting like a poor baby who had been separated from his family. The man and beast turned their eyes to the star beasts in this star field. According to their thoughts, if Nyo really came here, in order to keep a low profile, the people here might not have seen her before, but star beasts were different. The majority of the star beasts here had not awakened their intelligence, and those with intelligence were only at the initial stage, unable to speak at all. Thus, it was the most correct choice to ask them for information. After all, while Ling Ruoxue might be wary of humans, she wouldn't be too wary of astral beasts. In addition, they were a baby and a little beast, so it was naturally most appropriate for them to find a star beast that couldn't speak to ask about the situation. At the very least, the astral beast would not have the chance to betray them. After setting their sights on the star beasts, the two of them looked for a few relatively high-level star beasts and asked. However, they didn't get any useful information from them. In the end, an astral beast reminded them that they could go to the mainframe of the vast expanse starfield to get information. The words, Starfield Mainframe, were unfamiliar to Green Vessel and Sung Du. However, after a simple explanation from the Star Beast, the two of them finally understood that the Starfield Mainframe was also a tool spirit. However, the mainframe of the Star Sector was different from them. The mainframe of the Star Sector managed network data, while they had a physical body. Following the address provided by Astral Beast, the two of them teleported to the control panel where the mainframe was located. As soon as the two of them got close, the screen of the mainframe, which had sensed the danger, turned into a mess of code. Suddenly, the entire vast space network was temporarily interrupted. "Get out here!" He squinted his eyes and roared. As soon as it finished speaking, a virtual baby appeared in front of Green Vessel and Azure. Azure looked curiously at the virtual entity that the Star Sector mainframe had created, and would even reach out to poke it from time to time. Seeing this, the little baby that the Star Sector mainframe had transformed into became shy. "Don't be like this, don't jabbed randomly," the virtual baby suppressed his fear and whispered with his head lowered. "Answer a few of my questions truthfully. If I'm satisfied, you'll be rewarded," Azure said as he retracted his claws. Chapter 3023, The Enemy Was Too Cunning, 7, Please Ask. The virtual baby knew that the human and beast in front of him were of a much higher level than him, so he didn't dare to be negligent. "Have you seen these two people?" While Tsang was speaking, Len Ruoxue and Evildoer's image appeared in front of the Star Region mainframe. Seeing the two of them, the virtual baby's heart trembled even more. "Why yes, I've seen him." The virtual baby trembled and said honestly. When Tsang and Qingju heard this, they immediately became excited and quickly asked, "Where are they now?" "They were taken away by the people of the Alliance Council a while ago," the virtual baby said carefully. It was true that the Alliance had set their sights on Len Ruoxue and the demon. Unfortunately, they were too late. There was no Alliance left. Seeing Tsang's anger, the virtual baby was so scared that it cowered a few times before saying, "I haven't finished." "Then hurry up and tell me," Tsang shouted. "They were indeed taken away by the Alliance, but I received news that the Alliance no longer exists. The families of the people from the Parliament were all punished by the legendary powerhouses and lost everything, but I don't know what exactly happened. Because the mainframe of the Parliament is above me, I don't know too much about the details," the virtual baby said sadly. He was only the mainframe of the vast space zone, and he couldn't reach the Alliance Parliament. "I see. Where's the Alliance Council?" Seeing that the other party really didn't know anything, Azure asked. Su and I told him the coordinates and was about to return to the main computer to rest and recover his frightened little heart. Who knew that Tsang had pulled him out of the main computer and left with him? On the way, the white ball of light in Tsang's hand didn't dare to move, even though he wanted to know what his fate was. After the mainframe of the vast expanse star field was taken away, the network of the vast expanse star field went on strike, but Tsang obviously didn't care about that. They quickly arrived at the star sector where the Alliance Council was located, but all they saw was a scene of devastation. After using their divine senses to search, the two of them could not find Leng Ruoxue and the demon. They found a star beast and asked it for the reason. Then, the man and the beast left with the vast distance star field mainframe. At the same time, the mainframe of the Alliance Council, which was already extremely weak, was also taken away. This unlucky mainframe had managed to survive the laser cannon, but it had ended up in Cold's hands. This made one of the mainframe rather depressed, but against Cold's power, the unlucky mainframe didn't dare to resist and told him everything that had happened in the Alliance Parliament. Sung and Green Vessel were furious. Someone dared to bully his sister. Someone dared to bully his girl. After the man and the beast learned the truth, they went to find the criminal to take revenge. Compared to Leng Ruoxue, who had only stripped the other party of their wealth and status, Sung and Qing Ju's methods were much crueler. Their appearance had also caused the other clans, which had already suffered great losses, to become even worse. Thanks after that, they rushed to the Muyuan Galaxy. Muyuan Galaxy was the only galaxy that had not suffered any losses from the Alliance Conference incident that Sung and Green Vessel knew of. Hence, it was not hard to deduce that Leng Ruoxue had some ties with the people from Muyuan Galaxy. Without any hesitation, the two of them appeared in front of the Emperor. The Emperor, who had been sitting in his study dealing with official matters, saw the man and beast suddenly appear in front of him. He was so frightened that his little heart couldn't stop trembling. He really couldn't understand how this man and beast had entered his study. Sung went straight to the point, ignoring the Emperor's shocked face, and directly asked, "Where's my girl?" "A talking star beast." When Sung Yi opened his mouth, Emperor Muyuan was even more shocked, and his jaw almost fell off. After living for so many years, this was the first time he had learned that star beasts could speak. "Don't compare me to those low-level star beasts. Emperor Muyuan." Azure Fire roared as he sensed Emperor Muyuan's thoughts. Ugh! Emperor Muyuan was embarrassed and at a loss. The strength of the little beast in front of him was so terrifying. It actually knew what he was thinking. However, the other party seemed to be here to ask for information. Who's your girl?" After forcing himself to calm down, Emperor Muyuan asked carefully. Sung didn't say anything more and directly played Leng Ruoxue's image. Looking at the familiar figure on the screen, Emperor Muyuan understood. No wonder this little beast could speak. It really wasn't a star beast. They've already left. Knowing that the other party wanted to know Leng Ruoxue's whereabouts, Emperor Muyuan quickly said. As soon as he finished speaking, Sung and Green Vessel disappeared from his sight. Seeing how the other party came and went without a trace, he was even more convinced that befriending Leng Ruoxue and that demonic man was the right and wise choice. When Green Vessel and Azure learned that Leng Ruoxue had left, they naturally left dejectedly. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue and the demon leisurely arrived at a place that was similar to her previous life, but it was obviously more prosperous. That space was called Planet Indigo. There were no high-tech energy weapons like those in the star fields of advanced civilizations, nor were there any ability users. The humans living in that space, except for a small number who practiced a powerful martial art called ancient martial arts, were mostly ordinary people. However, the scenery there was as beautiful as a painting, so Leng Ruoxue and the demon had arranged for them to stay there and live the lives of ordinary people for the time being. Their residence was a 3-story villa by the sea. Through the window of the room, they could see the vast dark blue sea opposite them. This house was naturally not Leng Ruoxue's house. Instead, it was temporarily rented by her and the demon. Since he had come to a place where ordinary people lived, he naturally had to do as the Romans do. Alright. Leng Ruoxue had to admit that they had no money and no proof of identity, which was why they were unable to purchase land. The people here were not as accepting as the people in the vast expanse star field, which was why Leng Ruoxue was really unwilling to reveal her identity as a god. As trespassers with no identity, Leng Ruoxue and the other two had already learned the true meaning of keeping a low profile. But fortunately, in the eyes of ordinary people, a considerable number of experts here remained mysterious. So as long as they didn't buy fixed assets, no one would check their identity. Of course, they couldn't just build houses here. As such, Leng Ruoxue could only rent one. Chapter 30-24, The enemy was too cunning. 8. Even though the rented house was barely satisfactory, the location was decent, so Leng Ruoxue was pretty satisfied. The only one who was not satisfied was probably Ji Kai. When he was in the high-tech civilization star field, he had finally become a rich man, but he didn't expect that he would become penniless again after being proud for a short time. The alliance dollars that circulated in the Star Alliance were not used here. Ji Kai was very worried. It was really hard to move without money. Glancing at Leng Ruoxue and the demon who were taking a walk by the sea, Ji Kai deeply felt that as a competent butler, he could not let his master and madam be troubled over such a small matter like money. However, when he was renting the house, he had already sold all the items that could be sold without attracting anyone's attention. In a short period of time, he had nothing to sell. Seeing that his pocket was cleaner than his face, he was anxious. Just as Ji Kai was feeling depressed, Leng Ruoxue and the demon had already entered the deep sea. The purpose of the two of them going to the bottom of the sea was naturally not to dive, but to make money. What was the most profitable thing in the sea? In addition to all kinds of fresh and delicious seafood, there were naturally pearls. Leng Ruoxue found out from the internet that the women on planet Netherblue were extremely infatuated with pearls, which were treasures found in the sea. Almost everyone had a pearl accessory, and top-grade pearls that could reach the level of a precious treasure naturally grew in hidden places in the deep sea that no one could destroy. After gathering a lot of high-quality pearls and playing with the fish, the two returned to the shore. At this time, Ji Kai had already discovered that the two of them were gone. He was running around the beach anxiously like ants on a hot pan. When he saw Leng Ruoxue and the demon, Ji Kai quickly went up to them and said with a face full of resentment, "Master, madam, where have you been? I was so worried." "What, are you afraid that we'll leave you behind and leave on our own?" Leng Ruoxue laughed and teased. "Madam, why would I think that way?" Ji Kai felt wronged. Although he had such a thought for a moment, it was only for a moment, so he would never admit it. Seeing that he denied her intentions, Leng Ruoxue did not say much. She took out a black pearl the size of a baby's fist and said, "We're going to pick pearls." What a huge pearl. Ji Kai's eyes widened in disbelief when he saw the big pearl. After many days of research, he knew that women's money was the easiest to earn in this world, and women loved pearl jewelry the most. After the surprise, Ji Kai's eyes lit up. Needless to say, he thought of money. A lot of money. Seeing that Ji Kai's eyes had turned into the dollar symbol, Leng Ruoxue smiled calmly. "Don't even think about it, I'm interested in it." "Madam, you have good eyes." Ji Kai was a bit depressed, but he naturally couldn't sell the things that madam liked, so he could only continue to worry. Leng Ruoxue laughed as she looked at Ji Kai's unconcealed disappointment. Then, she pulled the evil demon back to her room. After 3 days of hard work in the room, Leng Ruoxue made a few sets of pearl jewelry and handed them to Ji Kai. "Thanks, sell it," Leng Ruoxue ordered. "I'll go now." With Leng Ruoxue's approval, Ji Kai was full of energy. After seeing off Ji Kai, who was walking on air, only Leng Ruoxue and the demon were left in the huge villa. The demon was naturally happy to be able to spend time with Shuer alone. Unfortunately, Ji Kai had returned too quickly. He had been out for less than 2 hours. Seeing that his master's expression was not good, Ji Kai quickly explained, "Master, the jewelry hasn't been sold yet. The jewelry company needs to raise money, so I came back first." What jewelry company doesn't even have money? He had to raise money to buy a few sets of jewelry. "Ji Kai, did you find a weak company? Don't sell Shuer's hard work for cheap." The demon was a little dissatisfied. The things that his wife had worked hard for several days, it was not good if they could not sell at a good price. Hearing this, Ji Kai's mouth twitched. It wasn't that the jewelry company didn't have money. He was the one who asked them to pay in cash. Which company would be able to produce such a large sum of cash? Ji Kai didn't forget the look on the face of the person in charge of the jewelry company when he said that he wanted all the money in cash. Master, it's not that the jewelry company doesn't have money, but I'm asking for cash. The few sets of jewelry that Madam gave me were sold for a total of 120 million indigo coins. The other party did not have that much cash on hand at the moment, so the transaction could only be delayed. Not wanting his master to misunderstand, Ji Kai explained. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but burst out laughing. All in cash, how could Ji Kai think of that? However, it seemed that Ji Kai could not be blamed. It was their fault that they did not have any identification and could not apply for the blue card. But when Leng Ruoxue thought of Ji Kai throwing a pile of money at them when they went out to buy things, she couldn't help but laugh. A week later, Leng Ruoxue and the evil spirit followed Ji Kai to the jewelry company. Besides wanting to see the 120 million in cash, he also wanted to cover for Ji Kai. After all, if Ji Kai was the only one who showed up with so much money, it might cause suspicion. When they arrived at the jewelry company, a middle-aged man immediately came out to greet them. Mr. Ji, you're here. The middle-aged man was extremely friendly. However, he only took one look at Ji Kai before his gaze was immediately attracted by Leng Ruoxue and the demon behind Ji Kai. It was mainly because the two of them were too beautiful, and they deliberately put on a cold, noble, and silent appearance, so it was difficult for the middle-aged man to ignore them. However, the middle-aged man had been in the business world for many years. Even though he was curious, he did not show it on his face. After a round of warm greetings with Ji Kai, he asked, "Who are these two?" "They are my bodyguards," Ji Kai said arrogantly, but cold sweat was pouring down his face. "Bodyguard? I didn't expect Mr. J's bodyguard to be so amazing," the middle-aged man exclaimed in admiration. "This is nothing. In my family, their looks can only be considered ordinary," Ji Kai bragged without holding back. When the middle-aged man heard this, he thought to himself, this Mr. J's identity is indeed not ordinary. It seemed that it was no coincidence that the other party could take out so many beautiful jewelry. More importantly, the level of craftsmanship of those sets of jewelry was absolutely unprecedented. Even in the next thousands of years, no one would be able to replicate it. As such, those sets of jewelry were naturally more precious and unique. Faced with the middle-aged man's shock, Leng Ruoxue could not help but feel speechless. Chapter 30-25, The Enemy Was Too Cunning, 9. After giving Ji Kai a warning look, Ji Kai immediately understood and said carefully, "Mr. Fang, can we make the deal now?" "Of course, the money is ready. We're just waiting for Mr. Ji to hand over the money and the goods." The middle-aged man smiled and invited Ji Kai and the other two into his office. The middle-aged man's office had a small room. When he led Ji Kai and the other two into the room, a room full of cash came into their sight. Towards this, the demon did not feel anything. He did not have any concept of money in his heart. On the other hand, Leng Ruoxue was calm. It was not like she had not seen so much money before. Only Ji Kai was so excited that he couldn't express it. Although he had more alliance dollars in his hands when he was in the high-tech civilization star field, that was all done through the internet. It was the first time he had seen so much cash. Immediately, the large denomination of cash dazzled his eyes. But fortunately, Ji Kai was only excited inside, and his face was still calm. So, he just randomly picked a few piles and counted them, then gave them to the middle-aged man. When the middle-aged man saw Ji Kai casually put the jewelry in the bag, his mouth couldn't help but twitch. Just how much of a prodigal was this person? Fortunately, the jewelry now belonged to him, so he took out the red velvet box and carefully wrapped the jewelry in several layers before putting it in the safe. The money in the house already belonged to Ji Kai. Seeing Ji Kai put the money into an ordinary sack that was half the height of a man, the middle-aged man was speechless. He couldn't help but complain that Ji Kai was not as casual as he usually was. However, he clearly could not control the other party's actions. Ji Kai only filled up 5 sacks with money. Then, Leng Ruoxue and the other two carried the 5 sacks filled with money and walked out of the jewelry company in a carefree manner under the twitching gaze of the middle-aged man. Even though Leng Ruoxue really wanted to keep the money, she resisted the urge to do so as not to attract attention. She thought to herself, this is a place for ordinary people. Don't do things that don't match the customs of the people here. With this thought in mind, Leng Ruoxue and the other two pretended to be calm as they carried the gunny sacks of money and walked on the streets. The 3 of them did not have any means of transportation. Apart from Leng Ruoxue, Ji Kai, and the demon did not think of buying a car. Of course, it was mainly because they were penniless before. The little money they had was used to pay for the rent. Therefore, other than living in a villa, the 3 of them were living below the poverty line. Now that she had money, Leng Ruoxue naturally thought of the car problem. With a sweep of her divine sense, she knew that there was a 4S shop nearby, so she directly brought the evildoer and Ji Kai there. When they arrived at the entrance of the 4S shop, Leng Ruoxue and the other two were blocked. I'm sorry, we don't have any trash to sell here. The shop's receptionist saw that Leng Ruoxue was too beautiful and didn't like her. She also saw that Leng Ruoxue was dressed so ordinarily that she didn't look like a rich person. On top of that, she was carrying a gunny sack in her hand. Naturally, she treated her like a rubbish collector. The moment Leng Ruoxue heard this, her beautiful face turned cold. The anger in her heart rose. Was she a rubbish collector? I want to buy a car. Leng Ruoxue knew very well that the best way to punish someone who looked down on others was to throw money at them. Hence, she would not engage in a verbal battle with a waiter. That would lower her status. Thanks, how can you say that? How can we not afford it? As long as we're willing, we can even buy your shop. Ji Kai said unhappily. How much is it? The evildoer's face was also black as he suppressed his anger and looked at the hostess. At this moment, the hostess realized that there was a devastatingly beautiful man standing in front of her. How could she not have noticed him before? It was all that woman's fault for setting the wrong target. However, it was obviously too late to remedy the situation now. The hostess wasn't stupid. She knew that she was no longer welcomed, so after being stunned for a moment, she put on a disdainful expression and said in a high and mighty tone, I'm priceless. I'm afraid you can't afford me. Just as well, I didn't plan on buying you. The demon smiled faintly. Then why did you ask me how much it was? The hostess was furious and asked. Can't I even ask? Originally, I was still lacking a little servant girl at home, and I planned to buy you if the price was right. Who knew that a good like you could be priceless? Forget it, I'll just buy a car. Leng Ruoxue finished the receptionist's sentence and was about to walk into the shop. Seeing this, the hostess immediately stepped forward to stop them. Leng Ruoxue was impatient and gave Ji Kai a look. Ji Kai understood and knocked the hostess unconscious with a hand chop. Then, the 3 of them walked into the shop. This was a world that looked at one's appearance and clothing. Leng Ruoxue and the other two were dressed in ordinary clothes, so no one paid them any attention when they entered the store. However, the 3 of them obviously did not mind, and they were happy to have some peace and quiet. The 3 men who were carrying the gunny bags looked around. In the end, Leng Ruoxue had her eyes on the latest sports car that was worth close to 10 million. This sports car had a black streamlined body and was extremely beautiful. Leng Ruoxue had also taken a liking to this car's eye-catching appearance. As for its performance, she naturally did not care too much about it. Of course, such an expensive car would naturally have outstanding performance. After taking a fancy to it, she planned to pay for it. Ji Kai felt a little heartache at the price of the car and whispered, Madam, this car is too expensive. I think we'd better pick a cheaper one. Anyway, we don't have much time to use a car, so there's really no need to buy such an expensive one. It's in this car. Leng Ruoxue said with certainty. They didn't really need it to be so expensive, but she had just become a nouveau riche, so she wanted to use money to crush these snobbish fellows. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue had made up her mind, Ji Kai could only follow her instructions. He shouted, "We want to buy a car. Is there anyone who can help us?" He shouted 3 times, but the service staff in the shop were busy with their own things and no one came. Seeing this, Ji Kai's anger grew, and he continued to shout, "If no one cares, well, just drive this car away." Upon hearing this, a waiter ran over and hurriedly stopped him. "Sir, you can't do this." "Then what do you want me to do?" "I already said that I wanted to buy a car, but there's no service staff here." "Are you going to let the customer wait for you?" Ji Kai shouted. "We're too busy," a service staff member said in a low voice. Ji Kai glanced at the empty exhibition hall and sneered, "Busy? You guys are really busy. Forget it, I can't afford to use you. Get your person in charge to come out." Chapter 30:26, The Enemy Was Too Cunning. 10, I'm the person in charge. "What can I do for you, sir?" Suddenly, a voice interrupted them. A young man with a nervous expression appeared in the exhibition hall. Beside him was the hostess who had been knocked unconscious by Ji Kai. Then, Ji Kai and the other 2 heard the hostess complain, "Manager, it's them. They want to rob our store. Call the police." Hearing the words of the hostess, Ji Kai was speechless. They hadn't even thought about robbing, how could they be charged with this? As such, should they satisfy the expectations of this hostess? While Ji Kai was hesitating, the young manager had already turned around and glared at the hostess. Then, he smiled at Ji Kai and said, "Sir, I'm sorry. My staff must have misunderstood you. I know that you're not that kind of person. That might not be the case." Ji Kai glanced at the young man and said lightly. Hearing Ji Kai's words, Leng Ruoxue almost laughed out loud. On the other hand, the young man's expression turned ugly. He didn't know how to continue. Then, he helplessly walked to Ji Kai's side and said warmly, "Sir, do you want to buy a car? I'll personally serve you. What's your purpose?" Ji Kai suddenly became alert. The young man was depressed when he heard this. What motive could he have? Wasn't it because the shop assistant looked down on him? In his eyes, he could not afford to offend any potential customer. Who knew which one would become his real customer? However, he didn't expect that his enthusiasm would be mistaken as having ulterior motives. He was really wronged. Seeing the young man's aggrieved expression, Leng Ruoxue didn't want to waste too much time here. She immediately said, "We want this one. Cash." Hearing the voice, the young man turned around and saw the outstanding man and woman standing on the other side of the sports car. He was instantly stunned. How could such a person be a robber? "I'm sorry, my shop assistants have offended you before. I hope the 3 lords can be magnanimous and not lower themselves to their level. I will punish them." After the initial shock, the young man apologized. "We're not some big shot, we're just here to collect trash," Ji Kai said gloomily. The young man didn't know what to do. Why couldn't he continue the other person's words? Sensing Ji Kai's anger, the young man could only keep saying good things to calm Ji Kai down. After that, the young man turned his gaze towards Leng Ruoxue and smiled. "This car is a limited edition in the world. There are only 500 of them in the world. Miss, it's an honor to be able to buy it. I should feel honored just because there's a limit of 500 cars." Leng Ruoxue did not wait for the young man to finish his words of praise before she asked indifferently. "Ugh." The young man who had been talking non-stop was immediately at a loss for words. In fact, he just wanted to let the other party know that there were only a few cars. He did not expect the other party to have such a reaction. One must know that compared to the world's population of hundreds of billions, 500 was really a small number. Unfortunately, the other party did not appreciate it. In reality, one couldn't blame Leng Ruoxue for not appreciating their kindness. What was the use of having a limited number of cars to a god? No matter how fast a sports car was, could it be faster than a god's teleportation? The reason why Leng Ruoxue wanted to buy a car was mostly because she wanted to do as the Romans do. After all, they couldn't possibly walk out of the house in public in the future, right? Therefore, the person in charge of the 4S store had expressed the wrong feelings. Quickly go through the procedures. I still have things to do. Leng Ruoxue did not want to waste any more time with the other party, so she immediately urged him on. The person in charge invited Leng Ruoxue and the other two into the office. Just as he took out the card-swiping machine, he saw Ji Kai already taking out money from the sack. Thanks, a little bit. How long would this take? The person in charge's eyes were dull and he was in a daze. This was a real nouveau riche, right? It had to be said that Leng Ruoxue's act of throwing money at people had completely shocked the young person in charge, pushing his mental tolerance to the limit. Just then, a shrill scream came from outside. Arg! This is a robbery. Hearing the scream, the young man immediately came back to his senses and ran out of the room. The one who let out the shrill scream was the hostess. The young man saw her and asked nervously, "Where's the robber?" There were quite a few expensive sports cars in the store. If they were really robbed, the losses would definitely be huge. In your room, it's those 3 people. The hostess said fearfully. Nonsense. Don't talk nonsense. When the young man heard this, he immediately reprimanded. However, the hostess seemed to have gone crazy and insisted that the other party had robbed her. No matter how the young man tried to stop her, she was convinced. Hearing the commotion, Leng Ruoxue and the other two walked out of the room. She glanced at the troublemaking hostess and asked calmly, "This young lady here claims that we're robbing you, but do you have any evidence? If you don't have any evidence, don't say anything. Otherwise, I'll sue you for slander. The money is the best evidence." Upon hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, the hostess hurriedly said. She peeked at the other party and saw that he had a lot of cash in his hands. "Did the money tell you that I robbed them?" Leng Ruoxue was curious. What kind of logic was this? Why would a normal person put cash in a sack? Why are you walking around with so much money? The hostess wanted to use common sense to convince others, but unfortunately, she was facing Leng Ruoxue. Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly. "According to what you said, I'm not a normal person. To tell you the truth, I like to put money in gunny sacks and carry them everywhere. Why, can't I? Is it against the law to do so? Although the law doesn't say that it's against the law, no one would do that. So, the 3 of you are definitely abnormal." The hostess continued to quibble. "Is it because no one would do this, or is it because you're too inexperienced and have never seen it before? Miss, from now on, you won't feel strange about such things anymore, so don't make a fuss, okay?" Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly. "That's right, don't be like this in the future, it's too embarrassing. Otherwise, we could sue you and put you in jail for framing us. This shop would also be implicated by you. How can a customer who came to buy something rob you? Do you still want to do business?" Ji Kai also pretended to be angry. He was so angry that he laughed. His last sentence was directed at the person in charge. The person in charge broke out in a cold sweat. He glared at the hostess and warned her not to cause any more trouble before he respectfully invited Leng Ruoxue and the other two back into the office. Chapter 30:27, The enemy was too cunning. 11. After a series of apologies, Leng Ruoxue and the other two expressed that they would not hold it against him. Only then did the person in charge feel at ease. Then, he resigned himself to his fate and counted the money. He then quickly went through the procedures for Leng Ruoxue. It was only when he saw Leng Ruoxue and the other two out of his sight that the person in charge could finally relax. After that, the receptionist was fired. Leng Ruoxue was driving the new sports car. The evildoer sat in the front passenger seat. Ji Kai could only sit in the back seat unwillingly. During this period, Ji Kai wanted to test the new car's speed more than once, but Leng Ruoxue only asked him one question: "Do you know how to drive?" Ji Kai's thoughts were extinguished. Ji Kai had driven a hover car and a spaceship before, but he had never driven a sports car. Madam, when did you learn to drive? Ji Kai couldn't help but ask curiously when he saw how well Leng Ruoxue was driving. I was born with it. Leng Ruoxue turned around and glanced at Ji Kai, smiling. Ji Kai was speechless. His wife was really too much. Seeing that Ji Kai had finally quieted down, Leng Ruoxue was satisfied. On the way home, they passed by a restaurant with unique decorations. Leng Ruoxue suddenly felt a little hungry, so she pulled Evildoer and Ji Kai in to try the delicacies of planet Indigo. This time, they didn't carry gunny sacks in their hands, so they naturally weren't treated as garbage collectors. After successfully entering the restaurant, Leng Ruoxue and the other two were about to find a seat when a surprised voice suddenly rang in their ears. Shuer, is it really you? Leng Ruoxue's face was filled with question marks, but seeing that the other party was someone she didn't know, she didn't think that he was talking to her. After all, there were many people in the world who called her Shuer. She couldn't possibly think that someone was calling her just because she heard someone calling her Shuer. After confirming that it was a stranger, Leng Ruoxue and the other two ignored the handsome man. When the handsome man saw this, he immediately became anxious and ran to Leng Ruoxue, asking anxiously, Shuer, you've misunderstood me. There's really nothing going on between me and that woman. I only like you. Sir, I think you've got the wrong person. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. Go away, we don't know you. The demon's face was also black as he roared. Shuer, how could you do this to me? Do you hate me that much? You actually pretended not to know me and got together with another man. I know you just want to make me angry. Let's not throw a tantrum, okay? Other than you, I won't love anyone else. You have to believe me. The handsome man ignored the demon and said to Leng Ruoxue. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue didn't know what to say. This guy was the male lead in a certain romance drama, right? Right? It was a pity that she was not interested in romance dramas. The demon's face turned even darker, and he was so angry that he wanted to beat someone up. Damn it, meeting a mental patient just for a meal. Today was really a lively day. Ji Kai's eyes widened in disbelief again. Looking at this sudden scene, he also felt that he had encountered too many things today. After a long while, Leng Ruoxue, who had taken a few deep breaths, saw that the unfamiliar man was only looking at her affectionately and had no intention of leaving. She could only repeat, Sir, I really don't know you. Leng Ruoxue's denial once again caused the handsome man to fly into a rage out of humiliation. He then roared, Don't tell me your name isn't Leng Ruoxue. Thanks, if she's called Leng Ruoxue, it means that I didn't get the wrong person. The handsome man said excitedly. As for Leng Ruoxue's last sentence, he automatically ignored it. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but roll her eyes. What kind of bandit logic was this? Following that, she heard the man's gentle voice. Shuer, don't be angry with me. I promise you, I'll ignore that woman in the future. Stop. Sir, can you please not mention this again? I really don't know you. Leng Ruoxue was going a little crazy. This man looked like a decent human, but why couldn't he understand human language? Shuer, I've already promised you. Why are you still angry with me? The handsome man said with a heartbroken expression. Leng Ruoxue was exasperated. I'm not eating anymore. Let's go home. With that, Leng Ruoxue turned around and left. The handsome man wanted to give chase but was stopped by the demon. When love rivals meet, their eyes turn red. The handsome man's eyes were spitting fire as he glared at the evildoer and roared, Shuer is mine. Get lost, you third party. Third party? Was he talking about him? The demon was stunned. He was her husband. Why did other men call her a mistress? Shuer is my wife, you should be the one to get lost. In terms of aura, the demon could definitely defeat anyone. The handsome man was frightened by the demon. He only came back to his senses when the demon and Ji Kai chased Leng Ruoxue out of the restaurant. By the time he gave chase, Leng Ruoxue and the other two had already disappeared. Back at the seaside villa, Leng Ruoxue was still depressed. Seeing that his wife was in a bad mood, the demon quickly comforted her. "Honey, that idiot must have mistaken you for someone else. Don't be angry." "You're not angry?" Leng Ruoxue asked curiously when she saw how nonchalant the demon was. "Of course I'm angry too. But that person is an idiot, and we're the ones who are tired from fighting an idiot. That's why we can't do that kind of losing business, don't you think?" The demon coaxed. "Yes." Leng Ruoxue nodded. Actually, she was mainly afraid that the evildoer would get angry because of this, so she pretended to be depressed. Now that the evildoer didn't even take this small matter seriously, she naturally wouldn't mind. After all, those people were just passers-by to them. It was obvious that they had quickly forgotten about the unpleasantness of that day. Chapter 30-28, You Have a Child. 1. In the next few days, Ji Kai was completely immersed in his passion for the new sports car. Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but sigh when she saw this. Men couldn't resist the temptation of a sports car at all. However, the one who stuck to her was obviously different. Leng Ruoxue glanced at the evildoer beside her and asked curiously, "Hubby, aren't you interested in sports cars?" When the demon heard this, he shook his head and said shyly, "My dear wife, I'm only interested in you." Leng Ruoxue did not know how to react. This reply was too mushy. She turned her head stiffly and looked at Ji Kai, who was learning how to drive. However, as soon as she took a look, she saw Ji Kai crash into a huge tree beside the seaside road like a kite with a broken string. The front of the car instantly deflated and gray smoke burst out. Leng Ruoxue was speechless. She knew that Ji Kai was a prodigal. Fortunately, the car had insurance, so she felt a little comforted. After Ji Kai got out of the car gloomily, he ran to where Leng Ruoxue and his evil master were with a sad face. Then, he burst into tears. "Woo! Master, madam, this car is really not sturdy. When I drove a hover car in the past, it was much more off-limits than this sports car. So, we were tricked into buying a fake one. I think we should return this car." After hearing Ji Kai's words, Leng Ruoxue really wanted to complain. How could a hover car be the same as a sports car? Those cars were flying in the sky, so they were much more dangerous than sports cars. Besides, no one asked you to drive your sports car into a tree. This prodigal child. After retorting in her heart, Leng Ruoxue only said, "Call the 4S shop. I'll get it repaired." "Do you need money for maintenance?" Ji Kai asked carefully. This was what he was most concerned about. "I'll deduct the money from your salary." Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. Ji Kai was stunned. Although he really wanted to ask if he had a salary, he still wanted to ask. However, he didn't dare to ask. After saying, "Oh," Ji Kai resigned himself to his fate and went to make the call. The person in charge of the 4S store quickly sent after-sales personnel to check on the situation. When they saw the car and the tree in close contact, the person's face darkened. This was clearly a man-made accident caused by improper driving. This kind of man-made damage, their shop generally wouldn't give free repair, nor would they provide insurance. However, facing the 3 pairs of eyes that were staring at him, he did not dare to say that he would not give them free maintenance. The gazes of these 3 people were truly too frightening, especially a certain middle-aged man. When she saw him, her eyes glowed like a wolf seeing meat. If he said that he would not give her free repair, she did not know if she could leave this place alive. After hesitating for a while, the person still bravely said, "I'm really sorry, but this accident was man-made, so we can't repair it for free. Even insurance doesn't cover such a situation." PNDNO1. Sir, it's not that we don't want to repair it, but we don't want to give it free repair. In your situation, it's obvious that it was man-made. No 4S shop would give it free repair. Also, Please forgive me for being a busybody, but with this car's condition, even if you complain to the Consumer Association, you can't change the fact that you can't repair it for free. The man explained patiently. After all, they were in the right. Therefore, he wasn't afraid of the other party making a fuss. Thanks, you mean, we're blaming ourselves for the car. Ji Kai wasn't stupid. He could tell. Nonsense. It's clearly the quality of your car that's not good. The car I used to drive, even if it had an accident, it wouldn't have been like this. Ji Kaihua shouted. May I ask what kind of car you used to drive? Hearing this, the person asked curiously. Floating. That car's much sturdier than your sports car. It won't be damaged at all by such a degree of impact. Compared to my previous car, your sports car is like paper. Ji Kai pestered them. He had decided that he would get free repair from this shop, because he had no money. After hearing Ji Kai's words, the man started to think very seriously in his heart. However, after thinking for a long time, he still couldn't figure out what brand the sports car was. This name was too unfamiliar to him. When Lin Ruoxue saw the after-sales personnel of the 4S store frowning and looking like he was in a dilemma, she almost couldn't control her laughter. In order to save money, Ji Kai was willing to do anything. However, Lin Ruoxue was still very supportive of Ji Kai's life, so she was happy to watch the show. Since she was silent, the demon was even more lazy to talk. I'm sorry, sir, I've never heard of this brand. May I know which factory produced the hover car? After thinking for a long time, the confused after-sales staff finally couldn't help but ask. Although asking such a question made him seem very unprofessional, he was willing to go all out in order to get to the bottom of it. Hearing this, Ji Kai knew he couldn't say anything, so he said in disdain, it's just a small manufacturer. I'm afraid you won't know even if I tell you. Hurry up and take the car back to fix it. Also, tell your manager that I won't pay a single cent because the quality of your car is not good. After saying that, Ji Kai left everyone behind and swaggered back to the villa not far away with his head held high. Seeing this, Lin Ruoxue smiled at the after-sales personnel and said, I'll have to trouble you to make the quality of this car better. After saying that, she pulled the evildoer and left without looking back. The after-sales personnel who had been left behind was completely dumbfounded. He was being abandoned. He looked at the sports car that had been badly damaged and felt gloomy. He would not be able to explain to the person in charge if he were to drag such a car back. However, the person in charge's words still rang in his ears. After some serious consideration, he resigned himself to his fate and dragged the broken sports car back to the shop. The person in charge of the 4S store was shocked when he saw the sports car being dragged back. This car. How did it end up like this? Without waiting for the person in charge to ask, the after-sales staff took the initiative to explain. When the person in charge found out that the car had been damaged because it had hit a tree and that the owner of the car had asked them to repair it for free, he was deeply worried. It was not impossible to repair the car for free because the car was insured. However, the condition of this car was obviously not insured. Therefore, free repair was too much of a loss for them. For a moment, the person in charge didn't dare to make any decisions on his own. Finally, he reported the matter to the head office. Chapter 3029, You Have a Child. 2. The next day, the head office sent a vice president who was in charge of this matter. The person in charge of the 4S store accompanied him to the door to discuss this matter with Lin Ruoxue and the other two. Lin Ruoxue and the other two had received a notice from the person in charge early on and were waiting at home for a certain CEO to come. However, when Lin Ruoxue saw the vice president, she was completely depressed. Because that person was none other than the emotional man she had met at the restaurant earlier. The moment the emotional man saw Lin Ruoxue, he was so moved that his eyes were brimming with tears. His voice also started to choke up, Shuer, I've finally found you. I didn't expect you to be hiding here. Lin Ruoxue was speechless. She did not hide, all right? She had been living here all along. Besides, she wasn't found by this man, it was a coincidence. Everything was a coincidence. He gave the dark-faced evildoer a comforting look, then turned to glare at Ji Kai. This guy wanted to save some money, but he ended up provoking this emotional man. This was great, there was no place to hide. Leng Ruoxue had already started to think about the possibility of changing her residence. However, after thinking about it for a while, she felt that it was too much of a loss to move to another place for a sentimental man. They had already signed the rental contract with the owner. If they broke the contract, not only would they not get the money back, but they would also have to pay the penalty fee. Damn it! Leng Ruoxue was extremely depressed. The person in charge's jaw almost fell off when he saw the vice president's aggrieved expression. Oh my god! What was going on? Old lovers meeting? It didn't look like it. This was because when Leng Ruoxue and the other two saw the vice president, they clearly showed a rather disdainful expression. Especially the middle-aged man, his eyes were so fierce that he wanted to skin the vice president alive. Based on the above situation, the person in charge was certain that the meeting between the two sides would definitely not be harmonious. He hoped that they would not fight. The person in charge prayed silently. On the other hand, Ji Kai was as depressed as Leng Ruoxue. He had never thought that this wolf would be summoned to his house. Now, his evil master would probably hate him to death. Woo! Ji Kai glared at the emotional man, wishing that he could make the other party retreat in the face of difficulties. However, it was obvious that the emotional man did not notice Ji Kai's situation at all. His thoughts were all on Leng Ruoxue. Schwer, didn't I already explain it clearly last time? Seeing that Leng Ruoxue had not said a word, the emotional man asked again. Sir, you've got the wrong person. Leng Ruoxue sighed and finally said. When the person in charge heard this, he heaved a sigh of relief. It turned out that the vice president had mistaken him for someone else. Good, good. He didn't want to offend the three of them, because they didn't look like people to be trifled with. One had to say, the person in charge was right. However, the vice president, who had completely fallen into his own fantasy, refused to give up and said with a sad expression, Schwer, what do you want me to do? I'll definitely do as you say. Really? Leng Ruoxue was skeptical. She did not think that this man would give up so easily. Of course. To show my sincerity, just tell me what you want. I'll definitely do it. The emotional man promised. Alright, then please leave my life. I'm really not the person you're looking for. Leng Ruoxue didn't want to miss the opportunity and hurriedly said. Fix the car while you're at it, Ji Kai added. Thanks. When the emotional man heard this, his eyes immediately became wet and he said, I'll help you fix the car, but Schwer, can you not chase me away? I really can't live without you. We cannot. Master, you've got the wrong person. Leng Ruoxue's attitude was a little forceful. She didn't want to waste any more time with this fellow. Otherwise, this evildoer would definitely be angry. Schwer, I will never mistake you for someone else. Even if you turn into ashes, I will still recognize you. The sentimental man said seriously after hearing Leng Ruoxue's words. Leng Ruoxue didn't know how to react. She gave Ji Kai a you can handle it look and left with the evildoer. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue was going upstairs with another man, the sentimental man wanted to follow her regardless of the consequences. Ji Kai blocked his way and said, Sir, this is a private place, no one is allowed to approach. I'm not an idle person, I'm Schwer's fiancé. The emotional man decisively gave himself an identity. Ji Kai was speechless for a while, then he laughed evilly, Sir, that's my madam. She doesn't know you at all, so don't think too highly of yourself. Go and find your Schwer. There were many people with the same name in this world. Don't pester someone else's wife, it's immoral. After talking to the emotional man, Ji Kai turned to the person in charge and said, Hurry up and drag your vice president back, or I won't be polite. Vice president, let's go back first. Upon hearing this, the person in charge was shocked and quickly said to the emotional man, he was really afraid that Ji Kai would do what he said. It was obvious that he was already angry. However, was it really a good thing for him to know so many secrets? He wouldn't be killed, right? Of course, what made him even more depressed was that he had not even come to an agreement on the conditions. The vice president had agreed to fix it for him, and from the looks of it, it was definitely free. The emotional man was extremely reluctant when he heard the person in charge's words. However, he knew that Shuer had misunderstood him, so she would not forgive him so easily. Hence, he only hesitated for a moment before he obediently let the person in charge pull him away. Seeing the two of them leave, Ji Kai's heart that was in his throat finally relaxed a little. The moment the two of them left, Leng Ruoxue and the demon walked out of the room. When Ji Kai saw this, he quickly went to greet him. Then, the three of them began to discuss in the living room. The main topic of discussion was naturally who the Shuer that the emotional man was talking about was. Leng Ruoxue thought for a long time, but she still couldn't figure it out. Ji Kai thought for a while before asking carefully, "Madam, are you the only child?" "I have an older brother." "What's wrong?" Leng Ruoxue replied honestly. "You don't have an elder or younger sister?" Ji Kai asked again. "No, I didn't." Leng Ruoxue thought for a moment before saying. Ji Kai didn't dare to ask the rest of the question. Otherwise, he would be the one in trouble. Seeing Ji Kai's hesitation, Leng Ruoxue asked calmly, "You want to ask me if I have an illegitimate daughter at home, right?" "Madam, I didn't ask that." "Do you have a brain? If there's really an illegitimate daughter, would she have the same name as me?" Leng Ruoxue was speechless. Chapter 30:30, You Have a Baby. 3. Then what's going on? Both Ji Kai and Leng Ruoxue could not understand. It must be Qing Ju's doing. Suddenly, the demon spoke. He had not forgotten that Qing Ju had once transformed into Shuer's appearance to trick him into canceling the engagement. He would remember this for life. Qing Ju is here too. Why can't I sense it? Leng Ruoxue did not want to suspect Qing Ju at all. In her heart, Qing Ju was very innocent and would never have thought of such an idea. But the demon was quite certain. "Master, who is Qing Ju?" Ji Kai couldn't help but ask. "He's a detestable fellow," the demon said through gritted teeth. Even though Leng Ruoxue did not really want to treat Qing Ju as a suspect, the demon had already made up his mind. Leng Ruoxue had no choice but to let him be. A week later, the sports car that Leng Ruoxue had taken for repairs was sent back. Looking at the brand new body, Leng Ruoxue and the other two expressed their satisfaction. The only thing they were not satisfied with was that this car was driven back by the sentimental man. When the demon saw the man, his face immediately darkened without hiding it. However, the emotional man did not mind at all. After his inept advisor's counseling, he became much calmer when he saw Leng Ruoxue. He was no longer like before, playing hard to get. Unfortunately, his target was Leng Ruoxue, and he was destined to fail. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue wasn't even looking at him, the emotional man was very worried. In order not to make Leng Ruoxue feel disgusted, he suppressed the reluctance in his heart and left Leng Ruoxue's villa. After walking for a distance, the emotional man couldn't help but look back every 3 steps. Seeing that the man was really here to give him the car and didn't continue to pester him, Ji Kai expressed his surprise. Strange. He actually didn't confess his love to Madam. Ji Kai couldn't help but ask. As expected, his words received glares from Leng Ruoxue and the demon. Ji Kai, who only realized later that he had said something wrong, hurriedly excused himself to practice driving and left the sight of his master and Madam. However, in less than half an hour, Ji Kai came back dejectedly. The first thing he said when he saw Leng Ruoxue and the demon was, "Master, Madam, I've damaged the car again." "You hit a tree again?" Leng Ruoxue was speechless. This speed was really fast. "It's not the same tree." Ji Kai explained in a low voice. He had something on his mind, so he accidentally bumped into the tree. What, from what you're saying, you want to knock down all the trees on the side of the road? Len Ruoxue was speechless. What benefits did that guy give you to make you help him like this? At this time, the demon's eyes were also spewing fire as he roared. Ji Kai was dumbfounded. He didn't help a certain someone. How could his master misunderstand him like this? Ji Kai expressed his grievance. Thanks, the evildoer, who was about to go crazy, pulled Lin Ruoxue and left Ji Kai behind to return to his room. Although Ji Kai felt wronged, he still had to inform the person in charge. When the person in charge heard the news, he was dumbfounded. Another crash. Or a tree. Wasn't this speed a little too fast? Facing the person in charge's suspicion, Ji Kai could only insist that the quality of his car was not good. The person in charge was so angry that he almost had a heart attack. After reporting the matter, the vice president ran over in a hurry. Seeing the red-faced vice president with sweat on his forehead, the person in charge couldn't help but sigh. He couldn't keep a child. He had already spent a lot of money repairing Len Ruoxue and the other two's cars. If he were to do it again, he would have enough money to buy a new batch of cars. At this moment, the person in charge felt that he had made a huge loss by selling the car. However, the vice president didn't think so. How could he not grasp such a good opportunity to get close to his sweetheart? At this moment, he was treating Ji Kai as his benefactor. He rushed to Len Ruoxue's residence at top speed. The vice president led his men to pull away the sports car that had crashed into the tree. The only regret he had was not seeing Shuer. However, there was still time in the future, and there would be plenty of opportunities, so he was not in a hurry. Before he left, he didn't forget to give Ji Kai a grateful and encouraging look, as if saying, "Do your best. That's the only way you'll have the chance to come." Facing the man's expectation, Ji Kai was completely worried. He really didn't do it on purpose. Who could he blame for the quality of the car? But now, both sides had misunderstood him. Sob. What was he going to do in the future? Although Ji Kai was sad, when the car was repaired and sent back, he still drove it and crashed into it again. As a result, the owner ignored him and didn't even give him a good face, while the sentimental man became his best friend. Of course, the so-called best friends was only what the emotional man thought. Ji Kai would not abandon his master and wife for the immediate benefits. Therefore, with the idea of infiltrating the enemy's base to get information, he became familiar with the emotional man. The man's name was Chu Senator. He was the second young master of the Chu family, one of the top 10 families on planet Faint Blue. He was handsome, rich, and had an extraordinary status. He was very popular with women on planet Faint Blue. He was even praised as the diamond-ranked bachelor that women wanted to marry the most. It was said that he was ranked 5th. When Ji Kai found out about this situation, he immediately reported it to his master. Unfortunately, the demon didn't care at all. He was just a mortal. What could he do in the diamond world? What he wanted to know was how that guy knew Shuer. Ji Kai then continued to ask around, and Chu Sen, who treated Ji Kai as a confidant, told him everything he knew. Back then, Shuer and I met at the beach. At that time, she stood alone by the beach, facing the ocean. She looked so lonely, so heartbreaking. With just one look, I fell in love with Shuer at first sight. Later on, I found out that Shuer had been abandoned, and my heart ached for her even more. I also want to know which blind man dared to abandon my Shuer. Somewhere by the sea, Chu Sen, who was chatting with Ji Kai, said. After hearing this, Ji Kai couldn't help but curse silently. From Chu Sen's words, he was very sure that Shuer was not his wife. Based on his master's protective personality, it was impossible for him to abandon his wife. Ji Kai, tell me the truth. Did your master abandon that man, Shuer? They've made up now. Just as Ji Kai was complaining to himself, Chu Sen thought of something else. Ah. No, you've really got the wrong person. Ji Kai quickly said. Ji Kai, we're so familiar with each other, and I treat you as my friend. Don't lie to me. Chu Sun didn't believe him. Chapter 30-31, You Have a Child. 4. I swear on my character that my madam is not the person you're looking for. Ji Kai said seriously. Then where is my Shuer? Wu. Shuer, I miss you so much. Why can't we acknowledge each other even though we're so close? Do you really hate me that much? As he spoke, Chu Sun started to choke up again. Ji Kai was speechless when he saw the other party like this. From the looks of it, Chu Sun did not believe him. Watching his evil master go back to his room, Ji Kai was speechless and asked the heavens. In the days that followed, Chu Sun still came to report every other day. Of course, he did not get to see Leng Ruoxue even once. Every time he left, he was extremely disappointed. At the same time, Qing Ju and Song, who were searching for Leng Ruoxue in the galaxy, suddenly felt that Leng Ruoxue was very close to them. The two of them looked at each other and said in unison, Nether Blue Star. Before Qing Ju and Song left, they had left a mark on the people they had met. Hence, whenever the other party's emotions fluctuated, they would be able to sense it. Hence, after knowing that Leng Ruoxue might have gone to the Serene Blue Planet, the two of them rushed over to the Serene Blue Planet. Half a month later, a baby carrying a snowy white kitten arrived at Leng Ruoxue's villa. Standing outside, Qing Ju and Sung Du felt a little nostalgic. At this moment, the door of the villa opened. Ji Kai stuck his head out from inside, but he didn't see the guest that the master and madam had mentioned. Just as he was about to close the door, he lowered his head and happened to see Qing Ju. Looking at the one-year-old child, Ji Kai was a little speechless. Whose child was this? Where's Darren? Ji Kai looked left and right. He did not connect the baby in front of him with the guests that Leng Ruoxue and the demon had mentioned. Where's my sister? Seeing someone come out from inside, Qing Ju was no longer afraid and asked directly. Sister? Little friend, is your sister missing? Did you call the police? Ji Kai's heart softened when he saw such a pitiful little girl. My sister is inside. Qing Ju pointed at the villa and said helplessly. Idiot. Sung also said. Ji Kai was already surprised when he heard Green Vessel's words. Now, he was dumbfounded when he saw a little white cat cursing at him. He couldn't speak for a long time. Seeing that he was in a daze, Qing Ju sighed softly and had no choice but to go in himself. His sister must be waiting for him. It was not until Green Vessel walked past Ji Kai that Ji Kai suddenly woke up, turned around, and shouted, Master, Madam, the cat is talking. After shouting, he ran into the courtyard. Leng Ruoxue and the demon in the living room were speechless when they heard this. Green Vessel was also speechless. Only Tsang was calm. Just as Leng Ruoxue stepped out of the living room, Tsang had already turned into a ray of white light and flew towards her. Green Vessel did not want to be outdone and also flew forward like an arrow. Seeing this, Ji Kai was dumbfounded again. Thanks sensing Ji Kai's thoughts, Green Vessel turned around and said in disdain while running, What's a flying ship? You can even compare to me. After saying this, he plunged into Leng Ruoxue's embrace. Zhang Ziyi was one step ahead of him and occupied the best position. These two guys were extremely fast. Even if the demon wanted to stop them, he was a step too late. He could only glare at the man and cat with his fire-spewing eyes. Ji Kai, who had suffered a heavy blow, was speechless for a long time. Sister, I missed you so much. After disdaining Ji Kai, Green Vessel looked up at Leng Ruoxue and said coquettishly, I've finally found my sister. I'm so happy. Qing Ju felt that he was satisfied. It was the same for Azure. It only realized how much it missed Leng Ruoxue when it saw her. On the other hand, the demon's face was black. When he saw these two guys, he knew that his two-person world was over. But now, if he wanted to leave with Shuer alone, it would not be so easy. AI. Forget it. He should be satisfied after being alone with Shuai for so long. I really can't be too greedy. I missed you guys too. After consoling the evildoer, Len Ruoxue carried Qing Ju and Sung back to her room to catch up with the two little fellows. Ji Kai had a stomach full of questions. When the demon heard this, he only said in anticipation, it would be great if someone could really kidnap them, but what a pity. Those two guys are not human, and no one can kidnap them. Oh heavens and earth! What did he mean by not human? Ji Kai didn't dare to think further. In the days to come, he would have two more young masters. After knowing that Ji Kai was the demon's target, Sung and Qing Ju immediately treated Ji Kai as a thorn in their side. The man and cat ordered Ji Kai around every day, but Ji Kai didn't dare to speak out in anger. He didn't even know why he was rejected by the little boy and the kitten. He didn't think he had done anything wrong. Other than being a little too shocked when he first saw them, there was really nothing else. However, after a few days of interaction, he was already quite calm when facing Sung, who could speak. Since he had masters like the evildoer and Len Ruoxue, it was not a big deal to know a cat that could only talk. Ji Kai, who had calmed down, did his best to serve everyone in the family. Who knew that just as he got used to this kind of life, Chu Sen, who had not appeared for some reason, actually moved next door and became their neighbor. Ji Kai, who knew all this, suddenly felt terrible. Seeing Chu Sen come to visit him as his new neighbor, Ji Kai really wanted to just faint. It was not enough that he came to see him almost every day, and now he even moved next door. What the hell was this? Looking at Chu Sen, Ji Kai gave up. However, the evildoer was not as angry as Ji Kai had imagined. He smiled and invited Chu Sen into the living room to receive him warmly. Ji Kai couldn't believe his evil master's abnormal behavior. In fact, not only the evil master, but even the madam, the little Qing Ju, and the snow-white cat named Sung were very calm when they saw Chu's senator. The only one who was not calm was Ji Kai, an ordinary human. Ji Kai calmed down his complicated feelings and stiffly went to pour tea for Chu's senator. Chu Sen, who had just sat down in the living room, looked at Len Ruoxue affectionately. His gaze was immediately attracted by the snow-white cat in her arms. Chapter 30-32, You Have a Child. 5. He was too familiar with this cat. When he saw Len Ruoxue and the white cat, Chu Sen was even more certain that this woman was the woman he had been looking for. Suppressing the joy in his heart, Chu Sen chatted as if nothing had happened. Shuai, your cat looks so familiar. I think I've seen it somewhere before. Oh, really? White cats are very common, there's nothing to be surprised about. Len Ruoxue replied half-heartedly, obviously uninterested in this question. That's true. However, your cat is of a very pure breed and its fur is very bright. I can tell that it's a very rare and precious cat. Chu Sen praised. Hearing this, Len Ruoxue's reaction was very calm, but Sung almost couldn't control himself and wanted to scratch her. You bastard! You're the one with a pure breed, your whole family is pure breed. Sung wasn't a real cat, so it hated people saying that about it. However, it felt a little guilty facing Chu's senator. It was even more afraid that the evil man would notice something. Hence, it could only suppress the burning anger in its heart and lay quietly in Len Ruoxue's arms, pretending to be noble and cold. At this moment, Sung heard Chu Sen continue, Yes, is yours a male or a female? It's probably a male. Len Ruoxue was not too sure. It's a male. The demon was certain. That's great. I have a pure-blooded female cat at home. I think we can let them mate. I believe that the baby they give birth to will be purer. What do you think? Chu Sen laughed. After days of thinking, he decided to change his strategy and try to integrate into her family. He believed that in time, Shuai would be touched by his deep love. Who knew that just as he finished speaking, the teacup in front of Len Ruoxue was flipped over by the furious Sung. Of course, Chu Sen didn't think that it was out of anger. He just thought that the cat didn't mean it. At a place where he couldn't see, Tsang's sharp claws had already reached out. However, it was stopped by Leng Ruoxue. After all, there was nothing wrong with what he said. But Tsang was furious. Your sister. It was not interested in female cats. However, the evil demon was obviously very interested in this topic and pulled Chu Sun to ask him seriously, as if he was responsible for his cat. Chu Sun also showed great sincerity and answered almost all of their questions. In the end, the two of them reached an agreement to find a chance to let the two cats get along. After sending Chu Sun off, the evil demon smiled at Tsang. Tsang. You're a person with a partner in the future, so you can't be willful anymore. Damn it. I don't like female cats. With no one else present, Azure no longer had to hide himself. He roared at evildoer angrily and even flashed his sharp claws. I really want to grab the pretty boy of the demonic man and kill him. How could he be so annoying? However, although he thought about it, Azure didn't dare to fight with the evildoer here, because Neo had warned them that this was the world of mortals. They could bicker, but they were forbidden from fighting. In particular, it was forbidden to fight with demons. Otherwise, planet Dark Blue would be destroyed in their hands. Tsang, who would always listen to Leng Ruoxue, naturally didn't want to make his girl angry. As for evildoer, he wouldn't do anything that would make his wife unhappy. Under the situation where both of them were deliberately restraining themselves, the man and beast seemed to be at peace. It was because of this that even though the demon suspected that Chu Sun was provoked by Tsang and Green Vessel, he did not question them officially. He would only mention this person occasionally. Thanks. As for Tsang and Qing Ju, they pretended not to know Chu's senator. However, the demon wasn't angry. It would be abnormal if the two detestable people were willing to admit to this. Hence, with an unknown motive, he decided to temporarily put aside his hostility towards Chu's senator. It was this thought that made him warm up to Chu's senator. Leng Ruoxue was smart enough not to get involved in the daggers-drawn battle between the man and the beast. After all, neither of them would be at a disadvantage. Meanwhile, Ji Kai, who had already sensed that the atmosphere was not right, had already sneaked into an empty corner and pretended to be dead. Leaving behind Tsang and Demon, Leng Ruoxue left the living room quietly. The moment Leng Ruoxue left, Azure immediately exploded with anger and pounced towards the evil demon. However, it could only scratch him a few times at most and didn't dare to cause any destruction in the living room. Otherwise, if Nyo got angry, she would ignore it. However, evildoer didn't care about Cold's attack at all. With a light wave of his hand, Cold was sent flying. Then, he patted his sleeves and chased after his wife without a trace. After Tsang was thrown away, Ji Kai came out from the corner and asked the calm Green Vessel curiously, "Young Master Qing Ju, aren't you worried that your pet has gone missing?" Upon hearing this, Qing Ju raised his head calmly and said, "That's not my pet, it's Big Sister S." If his sister was not worried, what did he have to worry about? Moreover, that fellow was not someone to be trifled with. After he finished speaking, Green Vessel returned to his room. In the face of Green Vessel's confidence and the information he revealed, Ji Kai understood. No wonder he had always felt that there was something strange going on between the young master of Green Vessel and that talking cat. So this was what happened. Ji Kai, who finally understood their complicated relationship, calmed down. Not long after, Tsang, who had been thrown away, calmly walked back from outside. The next day, an uninvited cat came for a blind date. Without a doubt, the owner of the female cat was Chu Sun. Looking at the golden female cat lying in front of him with a shy expression, Zhang Tiaoyu was speechless for the first time. Why did this so-called blind date make it so annoyed? How should I get rid of this feeling of wanting to scratch someone? Zhang was furious. He was so angry that he was about to explode. What made it even more unbearable was that the female cat seemed to be very satisfied with it and kept meowing at it. What's the point of calling? Please speak in human language. Azure didn't have any patience for beasts that couldn't be communicated with. It only felt irritable and easily angered. It really wanted to torture people. My house's Tsang seems to be very satisfied with your house's Ah Hua. Why don't you let Ah Hua stay and spend more time with Tsang? Your sister. Who would be interested in a flower? It did not. It could not understand why a golden kitten was called Ah Hua. From this, it could be seen that the owner's taste was not very good. Moreover, it was not even the size of a palm, and that Ah Hua was obviously much bigger than him. It looked like a tiger with a bear's waist. Luan couldn't understand. The damn evildoer did it on purpose, but did that human man not think that it could be a little kitten? Chapter 30-33, You Have a Child. 6. Did they not feel any guilt at all for letting such small cats breed? The truth proved that Chu Sun really didn't feel any guilt. He even felt that it was fine to be a little younger now. He could be a son-in-law to cultivate feelings from a young age. What a wonderful thing. The two cats were childhood sweethearts and innocent playmates. He didn't even need to think to know that his idea was the right one. Most importantly, this would make it convenient for him to be in a favorable position, which was exactly what he wanted. Now that he heard the demon asking him to keep Ah Hua, wouldn't he, as the master, have more opportunities to get close to the person he liked? The roundabout strategy would definitely succeed. Chu Sun firmly believed in it, so he agreed to the demon's suggestion without thinking. All right, I'll leave Ah Hua to you then. Then, Chu Sun, who left Ah Hua behind, continued to sit for a while before leaving reluctantly. The lonely Ah Hua, from then on, regarded Sung as her husband and followed him wherever he went. The little female cat's performance almost made Sung go crazy. Every time it was annoyed, it would kick Ah Hua away, but the indomitable Ah Hua would always run back and stick to it again. Leng Ruoxue, the demon, Ji Kai, and Green Vessel were all deeply touched by Ah Hua's determination. This was a cat that was brave in the face of love. Unfortunately, Tsang wasn't touched. In fact, he only felt annoyed. Fortunately, Ah Hua was a simple-minded person. On top of that, the food at Leng Ruoxue's place was pretty good. It ate to its heart's content, so even if it was abused, its life was still quite comfortable. Ah Hua was nourished, but Tsang's days would not be good. For Ah Hua's sake, her own girl even warned it to treat the cat better, saying that it was too fierce. After all, the other party was just an ordinary cat, and it could not stand being kicked. Azure felt wronged. After living for so long, this was the first time it had encountered such a thing. It really didn't know how to deal with it. After thinking for a long time, Tsang made up his mind that he couldn't go on like this, so he asked Ah Hua to the beach to have a heart-to-heart talk with her. Watching the two cuties leave, Ji Kai, who had been secretly watching, couldn't help but worry. He said to Leng Ruoxue and the demon, Master, Madam, Tsang wouldn't snap that little kitten in a fit of anger, right? Ji Kai was really worried. He had been taking care of the cat all this time, so he had developed feelings for it. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she only looked at Ji Kai calmly and said, Tsang wouldn't be so cruel to an ordinary cat. It had to be said that Leng Ruoxue understood Tsang well. Tsang had invited Ah Hua to the beach just to have a good chat. The two kittens walked on the beach, one in front and one behind. Tsang walked in front, and Ah Hua followed behind. After a while, Tsang stopped and turned to look at Ah Hua. Ah Hua, you're a good cat, but we're really not suitable for each other. Meow meow. Ah Hua couldn't understand human language, but it felt like it had been rejected. It couldn't help but ask why. Look, we don't even understand each other's language. You don't even know a foreign language. Azure said with a regretful expression. Meow meow. Ah Hua called out a few more times, as if to say, don't be like this, I really like you. Thanks, I said we don't speak the same language, please speak human language. Sang Yun said angrily. Was it wrong to like a cat? Why did you treat it like this? Ah Hua was very sad. Sang was its first love. It didn't want to give up just like that, so it meowed a few more times anxiously, as if to say, my dear, no matter what you're not satisfied with me, I'll change, so please give me a chance. Dream on. There will be no chance between us, and there will be no future. Just give up. Ah Hua, go and find a real cat. Not. Tsang understood what Ah Hua was saying, so he firmly refused. He couldn't let this cat sink deeper. These despicable humans were disrespecting cat rights. A good cat that had its first awakening of love was destroyed in the hands of a group of hateful humans. Tsang suddenly felt injustice for Ah Hua. The conversation between the two cats was also heard by Leng Ruoxue and the others. Leng Ruoxue was very surprised by Tsang's performance. She didn't expect Tsang to have such a literary side. Ah Hua, you're a good cat, but we're not suitable. These words were too familiar. This was clearly what a scumbag would say when he rejected a woman he was infatuated with. Of course, Tsang definitely wasn't a scumbag, but she suddenly wanted to know where he learned this from. As for the little female cat, her stubbornness surprised Leng Ruoxue. It seemed like they had hurt the heart of an innocent little female cat. Leng Ruoxue felt guilty. In fact, she didn't stop the evil spirit from pairing Tsang because she knew that Tsang couldn't have anything to do with an ordinary cat. However, she didn't expect this little female cat to be so infatuated with him. For a moment, she felt like she was riding a tiger and couldn't stop. After Tsang communicated with the infatuated Ah Hua, it saw that the other party was still so stubborn. It didn't know what to do. It should know that it had never dealt with such a difficult matter before. Even when it faced the fog, it had never felt such a pain in the ass. But now, an ordinary kitten made it deeply conflicted. After returning to the villa, Tsang didn't give anyone a good face and went upstairs alone. Ah Hua hesitated and wanted to follow, but he didn't dare. He didn't stop circling the stairs. When Leng Ruoxue saw this, she stepped forward and carried Ah Hua. She said helplessly, Ah Hua, I'll send you home. She couldn't let this little female cat live here anymore. Otherwise, she would feel even more guilty if something irreparable happened. Who knew that Ah Hua would understand her words and jump out of Leng Ruoxue's arms with a whoosh. It then hid under the sofa in the living room and refused to come out. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue only felt a deep sense of helplessness. Call Chu Sen and ask him to take Ah Hua away. Leng Ruoxue instructed Ji Kai, then pulled the evildoer upstairs to communicate. After receiving Ji Kai's call and asking for the reason, Chu Sen immediately rushed over, but the stubborn Ah Hua refused to leave with it. It even looked like it was going to leave the house with it. Chu Sen was helpless about this. Ah Hua was his mother's life. He had borrowed it from his mother, so he really didn't dare to use force on Ah Hua. Otherwise, if this stubborn little female cat got lost, his mother would break his legs. Seeing that Chu Sen, the owner, couldn't do anything to his cat, Ji Kai didn't know what to say. Just like that, Ah Hua was left behind again. From that day on, in order to avoid the fate of being taken away, Ah Hua hid under the sofa all day long. He would only come out for a walk when it was time to eat, and from time to time, he would look at Tsang with resentment. Seeing Ah Hua like this, Leng Ruoxue felt helpless. Chapter 30-34, You Have a Child. 7. Tsang completely ignored Ah Hua. Anyway, he had already said what he needed to say. It couldn't be helped if the little female cat didn't listen. Gradually, Leng Ruoxue and the rest found a way to get along with Ah Hua and even adapted to Ah Hua's existence. As for Ah Hua, it seemed that as long as she could see Tsang every day, she would be very satisfied. A month later, a beautiful middle-aged woman came to him. This beautiful middle-aged woman was Chu Sen's mother. She had come with the excuse of taking her cat home, but her main purpose was to see the person her son liked. Ever since the prodigal child at home said that he wanted to use his beloved cat to chase a girl, she had been hoping that the brat would bring back a wife. Who knew that after so long, he had not seen his wife and his beloved cat could not come back. It was understandable that it was not easy to get a wife. After all, good girls were hard to find. Why couldn't he bring back the cute cat? Mama Chu was very worried. Could it be that her beloved cat, which she had raised as her daughter since she was young, no longer belonged to her now that she could not see her wife. With this worry in mind, she personally visited. After seeing Leng Ruoxue, she instantly understood her son's desire for a wife. This girl is so pretty. She was even more beautiful than she had imagined. Since he was young, there were many girls around his son, but compared to the girl in front of him, those girls were like bald chickens without feathers. In an instant, she decided to give her son a helping hand. However, when she heard that the man beside Leng Ruoxue, who was even more devilish than her own son, was her future daughter-in-law's husband, she was dumbfounded, sorrowful, depressed. All sorts of emotions were tangled together. Mama Chu was sad. Her outstanding son had actually become a mistress and had even entered the family to snatch the wife of the man's real husband. What was this? At that moment, she was so conflicted that she did not know how to face Leng Ruoxue. Although she was envious of her beautiful daughter-in-law, she was not shameless enough to destroy someone's family. Plus, she could not take Ah Hua away, so after sitting for a while, the depressed Mother Chu found an excuse to leave. After Mama Chu left, Leng Ruoxue, who felt that the situation had become serious again, finally put on a stern face and said to Qing Ju and Sang coldly, "Do you two have anything to say?" She had been waiting for these two little guys to confess, but after so long, they didn't say a word about it. Now that Leng Ruoxue had asked, the two of them lowered their heads in unison, refusing to look at Leng Ruoxue. They were feeling guilty. They were indeed the ones who had caused the incident, and they had not expected such serious consequences. "Sister," after a long time, Qing Ju raised his head and looked at Leng Ruoxue pitifully. "Aren't you going to explain the matter clearly?" Leng Ruoxue said angrily. "It was me who became my sister's appearance and got to know him. However, I didn't do anything to that guy that I shouldn't have done. It was completely that guy's wishful thinking." Qing Ju told the truth. Hearing this, the demon revealed an expression of "I knew it." Ji Kai, on the other hand, was even more surprised. He thought to himself, this little boy is so powerful. He could actually transform into Madam. "You really didn't do it? Then why would he do something so strange to me?" Leng Ruoxue was speechless. "Sister, I swear that I didn't do anything. Back then, because I couldn't find you, I changed into your appearance in many spaces. I wanted more people to know you. That way, when those people see you, they will recognize you. I also left a mark on their bodies, so when their emotions fluctuate, I will sense it. That's how I can find you." Qing Ju explained. Thanks, however, his explanation caused Leng Ruoxue and the demon to feel extremely annoyed. "Shuer, don't stop me, I want to teach this bastard a lesson." After he finished speaking, he did not give Leng Ruoxue a chance to stop him. The evildoer lifted green vessel and walked upstairs. Not long after, Qing Ju's cries could be heard from upstairs. Ji Kai couldn't bear to hear this. After all, he was a baby. Master really had the heart. After he told Leng Ruoxue his thoughts, Leng Ruoxue said to Ji Kai calmly, "It's fine. Qing Ju's skin is rough and his flesh is thick. It won't hurt even if I hit him a few times." Ji Kai was silent. A little baby can be considered to have rough skin and thick flesh. However, he didn't dare to ask such a question again. As for Leng Ruoxue, after she finished speaking to Ji Kai, she turned her gaze to her chest and looked at Song. "Song, this was your idea, right? How did you know?" Azure replied in a low voice. "Other than you, Qing Ju shouldn't be able to think of such a bad idea." Leng Ruoxue was very certain. "Girl, why didn't you think of me when something good happened?" Azure felt wronged. "It's not like you to do good things," Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Song was very worried, but Ji Kai didn't dare to listen any further, as he might have heard some secret. He didn't want to be retaliated against later. At this moment, the evildoer who had finished dealing with Green Vessel came down from upstairs and pointed at Song. "Song, come here, I promise I won't beat you up." "No way. Evildoer wanted to cut Sung into 8 pieces. Before this, he had already concluded that Green Vessel and Sung were behind this without any evidence. Now that Green Vessel had confessed his crime, Sung would not be able to escape. Therefore, the next person he had to deal with was Sung. However, Sung was not as stupid as Green Vessel. It knew that the evil man wanted to take care of it, but it still gave itself to him. It escaped from Leng Ruoxu's embrace. At this moment, Nyo was also in a fit of anger, so she might not cover for it. You still dare to run? The demon was furious and quickly gave chase. The man and the cat chased each other along the beach. Fortunately, it was late autumn now, so there weren't many people wandering around the beach. Otherwise, Leng Ruoxue would have a headache. When Evildoer finally caught up to Tsang, he grabbed the struggling Tsang and took out a sharp knife. After a few strokes, all of Tsang's white fur was gone. Evildoer knew that he couldn't beat Azure up because Azure was too small. It wasn't convenient for him to beat Azure up, so he thought of this punishment. As for the hairless Tsang, without its fluffy fur, it was like a rabbit that had just been born, its body pink and tender. This new image made Azure lose all its old face. Woo, it didn't have the face to see anyone. The heartbroken Tsang entered the room and refused to show his face. The demon's mood was greatly relieved after getting his revenge. In the end, they still needed Qing Ju to step in. Qing Ju, who was extremely unwilling, could only turn back into Leng Ruoxu's appearance and wait for Chusen to come. Chapter 30-35, You Have a Child. 8. 3 days later, her mother and Chusen came together. The moment they saw 2 identical Leng Ruoxus, both mother and son were extremely shocked. The 2 women in front of them were exactly the same in terms of appearance and temperament. Even their names were just the same pronunciation but different. The mother and son were shocked for a long time before they slowly recovered. Facing this scene, Ji Kai sympathized with the mother and son. Back then, when he saw Qing Ju transform from a little boy into his wife, he was stunned for a long time. Even now, he still felt like he was dreaming. She's my sister. I only found out about her existence 2 days ago. Leng Ruoxue gave the other party some time to digest the information before she explained. After hearing Leng Ruoxu's words, the mother and son were overjoyed. Mama Chu even held Qing Ju's hand affectionately and stared at him. Chu Sen revealed a rare shyness. He felt embarrassed that he had really gotten the wrong person. After a brief introduction of both parties, Leng Ruoxue pulled the demon away. He had finally solved this big problem for himself, but now, it seemed like Green Vessel was in big trouble. Because the mother and son were extremely satisfied with Qing Ju, Mama Chu, who was initially afraid that her son would be a mistress, felt her gloomy mood vanish with Qing Ju's appearance. Chu Sen was not the eldest son, so his mother did not need him to find a woman of equal social status. Everything was based on his son's wishes. It could be said that his mother was very open-minded on this point. Sensing that Chu Sen's mother was really happy, Leng Ruoxue almost wanted to marry Qing Ju to Chu's senator. What a pity. Qing Ju was a fake woman. Leng Ruoxue and the demon who had returned to their rooms were enjoying the scene in the living room through the screen. Both of them were in a very good mood. On the other hand, Qing Ju was so depressed that he was about to cry. Faced with other people's enthusiasm, Qing Ju was 1,000 times not used to it. Woo! Who can help to pull away this creature called mother? Qing Ju, who was born and raised by the heavens and had no mother, could not understand the love a mother had for her son. His uneasiness was mistaken for shyness by his mother. The more she looked at Qing Ju, the more satisfied she was with him. She quickly turned from a guest to a host and greeted Qing Ju, even treating him as her future daughter-in-law. Chu Sen, who was sitting opposite Qing Ju, lowered his head shyly. His little face blushed as he peeked at his sweetheart from time to time, his heart beating wildly. Mother Chu almost laughed out loud when she saw the embarrassment on the pair's faces. When had her son ever been this shy? It seemed that having someone in her heart was indeed different. Mama Chu looked at the perfect couple and was very satisfied. However, how could the two of them just sit there and not scam him? The anxious mother Chu thought for a while before she affectionately took Qingju's hand and placed it in her son's hand. Qingju was shocked and quickly retracted his hand. He looked at Chu Sen in horror. Mother Chu was bewildered by this scene. She did not expect the girl in front of her to be so timid and shy. However, this kind of girl was also good. She was so innocent. As for Qingju, who could read minds and knew that the man's parents were quite satisfied with him, when he found out what Mama Chu was thinking, he wanted to look up to the sky and roar. He wasn't shy, okay? After living for so long, his little meaty paws had never been touched by any stinky man. This made him rather worried. Sob. His innocence. Just like that, there was no return. At this moment, Qingju was extremely regretful. Why did he listen to Tsang's bad idea and turn into his sister to cast the net? Now, she was being pestered. Thanks, yes. He felt so wronged. Tsang was also involved in this, but that bastard Tsang was hiding in his room. Thinking about this, Green Vessel was so angry that he shouted, "Tsang, get out here." His shout was full of anger and it gave the mother and son a big scare. Both mother and son could not help but widen their eyes and open their mouths. They looked at the beautiful Qingju in disbelief. What Mother Chu thought was that this girl was so manly. Chu Sen was obviously shocked. All along, he had thought that his sweetheart was a cute and helpless girl. But now, the little bird had suddenly turned into an eagle. It was no wonder he was shocked. However, Chu Sen knew that if he loved someone, he had to accept everything about her. After the shock, he quickly calmed down and even felt that it was not bad to have a wife with a loud voice. At least he didn't have to coax her all day. As he thought about this, he felt like he had discovered another side of his wife and was suddenly excited. His wife was really cute no matter how he looked at her. Even if he suddenly transformed into an eagle, it was not something he could not bear. Qingju, who had read Chu Sen's mind, was completely depressed. It looked like the other party was determined to be a pair with him. What should he do? He was an artifact spirit and had no interest in human love. However, with Chu Sen's interference, he even considered giving him an amnesia pill. Of course, his sister would not allow him to have such thoughts. After all, the memory loss pill was harmful to ordinary humans. Qingju, who had been driven mad by Chu Sen, really did not have any good ideas. At this time, he really needed a military advisor. Just as Qingju was thinking about this, a pink meatball fell from the sky and landed in his arms. Qingju lowered his head to take a look. Wasn't this the shaved Tsang? Looking at Tsang Jis' reluctant appearance, he was probably thrown out by that damn demon. It had to be said that Green Vessel was right. The demon heard Green Vessel's voice and forcefully threw Tsang out of his room. Although a few days had passed, Tsang's fur had only grown a little. The pink flesh on his body could still be seen clearly. Chu Sen, who had finally recognized Tsang, couldn't help but point at Tsang and ask, "Isn't that the white cat? How did you end up like this?" Meow meow. Tsang, who didn't dare to speak, glared at Chu Sen and screamed. "Damn it, it's all because of you that I became like this." Chu Sen said he didn't understand, but Ah Hua did. After meowing a few times, Ah Hua moved closer to Qingju, wanting to get closer to Tsang. "Ah Hua, you recognize it?" "What's wrong?" Mama Chu asked curiously as she picked up Ah Hua, who had crawled out from under the sofa with great difficulty. She still hadn't seen what that pink, tender meat was. Meow meow. Ah Hua proudly called out to Mama Chu, "That's my sweetheart." After that, Ah Hua struggled to get out of Mama Chu's arms and go to Tsang. As expected of the person who raised Ah Hua, she instantly understood what he was doing. At the same time, she felt a sour feeling in her heart. It was really hard to keep a grown girl. Ah Hua is starting to fall in love.